All I wanted was one peaceful puff. But these relentless monsters keep ruining my vibe. Seriously, how did I get dragged into this crazy tutorial zone? Turns out some bored demon god created this hellscape called Hassion. His grand divine plan, pure bloody entertainment. Honestly, he probably wants a refund. For 10 minutes, he just watched me ugly cry over a broken lighter, right before a raging bunny almost ended my whole career. And the other human players, zero respect. I am literal garbage tier to them. But I found a cheat code. The secret ingredient. Monster parts, slay the mobs, farm the loot. I swap creepy eyes and fangs for precious system points, but my true target, their hearts. Gulping down a monster core grants sweet stat boosts. Sure, it feels like a massive health hazard and tastes like a flaming tire soaked in expired cough syrup. Disgusting. Absolutely. But my base stats permanently spike. I will eat my way to OP status. Then I will completely obliterate the scumbags who dumped me here. Hear me. Demon. You are next. My vengeance will be legendary, assuming my chronic gastritis does not kill me. How do I know this pure luck? I found an armless master. Now, I am his personal spoon feeder, and I even light his smokes. I saved his life, so he passes down his martial arts wisdom. Basically, I am just his glorified, walking, breathing lighter. Today, during my loot run, I spotted the legendary high-ranker Lee Seojin. This absolute unit is a top-tier beast. He casually carried boss-level cores dripping with aura, dangling like shiny keychains. Man, my mouth watered to devour just one of those juicy drops. Would I instantly jump 10 levels? Would the system shower me with wealth? And importantly, would it still taste like hot garbage? Right now, my off-grid dirt cabin drains 8,000 points, so I am forced to drag my tired self downtown to peddle loot. Destination Muddy Village's central tower. That is the lair of the local zone manager, the smug demon Krista. With one arrogant snap, he scans the core marks branded into every poor soul trapped in Helion. Ding system points updated. Just like that, my blood, sweat, and tears were liquidated. The payout was so pathetically low that Horned Jerk actually giggled. Mark my words, I will end him. Even if he dies from laughing. Time to march back to the grind. Spite alone will not level me up. I must devour everything. Now these nasty monster cores have completely wild randomized stat yields. Master says normal humans score 0.6 experience daily just by existing. My pathetic self gets 0.02 experience per goblin. We juggle 4 base stats and everyone spawns at rank 7. Rank 1 is the absolute peak. For a guildless, solo-leveling loser like me, I must chug 50 goblin hearts daily just to stay average. So it is back to the endless green skin grind farming, endless mobs. 3 weeks of this non-stop slaughter. My trusty starter blade was literally chipping away at its limit, dreaming of weapon upgrades. A chilling shadow loomed behind me. A lightning-fast strike. Was it you who slaughtered my kin? It hissed. Hold up, a talking mob. This was my first time encountering a vocal beast, and sadly, there was no mute button. Bet you never saw a boss like me, he smirked. This was the goblin warlord, Chief Karakra. Suddenly, my master's old warning echoed in my brain. Beware of high-intellect monsters. But he skipped the part about their massive egos. This green menace wanted me dead, insanely fast, overwhelmingly strong. Karakra even had the nerve to trash-talk my weak stats. He expected a hero since I had completely wiped his entire squad, yet he claimed he could squash me bare-handed. Smirking at the pure absurdity, I fired back. For a system-generated mob, you sure yap like a human. Tilting his ugly head, the goblin asks what my deal was. Honestly, over the past 3 weeks, I mercilessly farmed 40 to 60 of his goons every single day. Over 1,000 kills. Yet this tiny forest lacks even one goblin spawn camp. So how exactly do they keep appearing? Is Karakra birthing them himself? Spoiler alert, they are just endless auto-respawning digital mob fodder. Suddenly, the boss bursts into maniacal laughter. The booming sound wave literally made my eardrums bleed. Wiping a tear, he declares he is no basic NPC, but he is totally keeping his lore a secret. Shut your trap, human, he roared. Scratch me and I might just drop some exclusive lore. Basically, I gotta beat the truth out of him. I dashed forward aura blazing, wielding my cheap dagger like a massive greatsword to force an opening. But this boss had insane battle IQ. I quickly shifted my attack stance, but the freak parried flawlessly and countered with explosive force. Grinning through the deadly clash, I yelled that I was claiming that reward. Karakra chuckled darkly. Finally, some real entertainment. Then in less than a single heartbeat, bam! He teleported point blank. His speed had absolutely skyrocketed. A devastating barrage of fists slammed into my chest. He was tossed like a rag doll. He slammed into a tree and, spoiler alert, the tree won. Ribs shattered instantly. But the monster hyped up on battle adrenaline stepped in for the kill. But our crazy protagonist sprinted forward. He desperately needed demonic intel. Ignoring the pain, he went right back to throwing hands. His relentless assault actually pushed the boss back. The goblin chief was baffled. How was this kid still moving with busted ribs and a useless left arm? Once more, our hero demanded to know how this guy reached Helion. Thrilled by the sheer violence, the boss agreed to spill the tea, mid-brawl. Plot twist. He wasn't kidnapped into this hellscape at all. He actually volunteered. Turns out he was simply hired by some shady demons. Basically, he is a freelance evil mercenary. Hearing this corporate confession, our boy practically begged him to reveal the exit route. The goblin smirked, thinking the kid had dropped his guard. Big mistake. He took a brutal kick right to the gut, followed by a flurry of nasty dagger stabs. The boss finally bled. He tried to swing back, but our guy was locked in. He slammed his blade right into the monster's heart. Game over. The almighty goblin chief had lost the match. But clinging to life, he decided to drop some lore. The brutal truth. He was totally scammed by those demons. Now, he was stuck here. Thanks to a super shady fake mercenary contract, his round-trip ticket home was cancelled. Seeing the information well running dry, our hero packed his bags. But the dying goblin stopped him. He insisted that the kid take his loot and offered some final pro tips. In return, the boy handed him a cigarette. Yep, you heard right. The giant monster shared a smoke break. This absolute madman blows all his points on tobacco, and now he is out here giving bosses nicotine addictions. Back at the base, the demon administrator kept up his usual roasting. Our bruised hero just demanded heals. The shady demon agreed, but charged a whopping 10,000 points. He started casting tiny recovery spells, stitching up every single gash. The winged scammer quickly noticed something weird. This human was usually super cheap, but today, zero complaints about the insane medical bill. Our hero casually tossed over a heavy loot bag, demanding to know the crafting options for the juicy contents inside. The admin sensed this wasn't basic trash loot. But the moment he peeked inside, his demonic jaw dropped. This crazy rookie had actually butchered the legendary overpowered goblin chief. No way. Ignoring the demon's absolute shock, our guy impatiently tapped his foot, waiting for the shop menu. With an annoyed snap of his fingers, a glowing system screen popped up. Just as he was scrolling through the shiny upgrade paths, his mind drifted back to the boss fight. He remembered the dying warrior's insane request, "Bro, please eat my body." The boss had wondered if this human understood the secret monster recycling method. Our main character definitely knew, but he was completely grossed out by it. The goblin chief instantly caught on. This human was hesitating because of his pesky earthling morals and ethics. Honestly, human philosophy is so inconvenient in a fantasy world, so the boss told him to drop the guilt. In monster culture, getting looted by your killer is top-tier honor. The fading chief begged him to harvest every last piece. Our boy still looked mildly nauseous. To sweeten the deal, the chief bragged that his nails were premium high-tier crafting materials famous for their insane durability. Hearing the word premium, the human swallowed his pride and awkwardly thanked the fading boss. With his final breath, the chief apologized for dragging this poor kid into his weird monster assimilation fantasies and finally died. Snapping back to reality, our hero stared at the glowing system screen. The chief's eyeballs could actually give him a massive vision buff. Deep down, he suddenly realized that the crazy goblin totally won in the end. Sure, he was a terrifying monster, but he was also the only guy who actually talked to him besides his grumpy master. Getting sentimental over a dead goblin friend, he aggressively ordered the demon to graft the eyes and teeth right into his skull. "Hey, can you do the nails too?" The greedy administrator grinned. Of course, when asked if they could be resized to fit human hands, the winged scammer smugly replied, "Cash fixes everything, buddy." With the terrifying surgery complete, the kid felt a weird wave of gratitude for the boss who was now literally a part of him. Later that evening, he was flexing his new Wolverine claws in the mirror. His master immediately roasted him for being a massive, edgy nerd. But when asked if the monster claws were too weird, the armless teacher shook his head. Honestly, they were absolutely flawless for dirty sneak attacks. Suddenly, our boy felt a sharp pain in his wallet, crying over the insane upgrade cost of his dead buddy's parts. But these rank 7 auto-evolving weapons were completely overpowered. They were basically impossible to fix, but boasted legendary sharpness. Changing the subject, the master asked if the boss dropped a monster core. The kid nodded yes. The old man pointed out that absorbing it must have been a crazy experience boost. But then he noticed his pupils zoning out completely. Sensing some heavy emotional baggage, the master offered him a cigarette for a deep heart-to-heart chat. Break time. The master dropped some serious wisdom. Goblin chiefs are fiercely proud creatures. It was the rookie's first time outsmarting a monster with an actual brain. He promised the kid would face even more genius beasts on his journey. Heck, he could even have deep philosophical chats with them, just like his heart-to-heart with the boss. The main character's jaw practically hit the floor. How did the old man know about that conversation? Simple. His dumbfounded face completely gave it away. Chuckling, the master leaned in and dropped some harsh truth. Never hesitate to secure the kill for the sake of leveling up, the goblin chief probably preached the exact same survival rule. The master sighed heavily. Sure, slaying an honorable foe leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. But in this twisted realm, mercy and blind trust are a one-way ticket to the graveyard. He even used his own tragic past as living proof. But seeing the rookie start to panic, the old man switched gears. Hey, you won? You survived to tell the tale. Celebrate that victory. Those shiny new claws bursting from his hands, pure undeniable proof of his warrior status. According to the old man, the kid had every single right to flex. Blushing like a tomato, the rookie bowed deep, thanking his mentor for the hype. His growth speed, absolutely astronomical, way past his wildest dreams. Fast forward to the very next day. Time for a brutal field test. He dashed forward like an absolute blur. Snicked. The new weapon sliced cleanly through a goblin, leaving the poor mob thrashing in agony before it turned into pure experience points. Our discount Korean Wolverine casually flicked his wrists, painting the dirt with blue monster blood. Absorbing that boss earlier, a massive 10% boost to both health and strength. Back on the grind, Mu Hyuk grinned, amazed at how flawlessly his body accepted the wild bone transplant. These lethal blades felt completely natural, like genuine extensions of his own arms. But the absolute best part, zero pain when popping them out. He had total, effortless control. But just as the adrenaline hit and he hyped himself up to conquer this world and make both his masters proud, a super annoying voice ruined the entire mood. The ultimate bully had respawned smirking like an absolute creep. He called this awful reunion deeply refreshing. The hero glared daggers at him. How did you track me down? The jerk waved it off. Stalking, please. He just wanted to say a friendly hello. Apparently our hero is painfully predictable, hiding in the exact same spots. And since the farming grounds were completely dead, the bully just went for a stroll. What a magical, infuriating coincidence. The sheer audacity made our protagonist's blood boil, but the trash mob had some spicy server gossip to spill. Rumor had it someone brutally slayed a massive boss, and whispers of a mysterious secret weapon were floating around. Total stalker alert. But the bully cut straight to the chase. That blabbermouth administrator totally leaked the info. Still, the jerk assumed the newbie got absolute garbage for loot anyway. Our goblin slayer was fuming at the disrespect. But honestly, huge sigh of relief, his Wolverine knockoffs were still flying completely under the radar. Suddenly, the punk grabbed his collar hand over a cut of the loot. The sheer greed was almost comical. Then the threat dropped. The countdown is officially on Buddy less than a week left, and his future safety completely depends on paying the bully tax. Better stay good friends, right? The heavy threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud, and with a final smirk, he promised to catch up after class selection. The jerk finally waltzed off, leaving our hero practically foaming at the mouth. His new claws aggressively twitched. Oh, a quick backstab sounded so incredibly juicy right now, but logic violently kicked in. He took a deep breath, totally shocked by his own murderous rage. Ganking a guild-backed player right now? Pure suicide. Sure, this place feels like a video game. But there are no health bars to save you from getting your arm chopped off. A surprise attack might work later, but patience is a virtue. Just wait it out in exactly 6 days. The 5-month trial on this cursed continent officially ends. Time to pick a job class and become a permanent resident. Say hello to magical powers, shiny new stats, and actual combat skills. But here is the massive, terrifying catch. With great power comes the absolute purge. Players from round 13 will finally unlock the friendly fire option. Right now, the demon's will system acts as a strict baby gate. 0 player killing is allowed, but after 6 days it turns into a free-for-all murder fest. The veterans are usually sitting pretty and safe, but even their spawn protection permanently drops after exactly 1 year. Our lone wolf protagonist, completely guildless. He has to rely solely on the old man's teachings and the goblin's final lesson just to survive the coming bloodbath. Step 1 to surviving the purge. Master. The newly acquired slashy tools. But training was suddenly interrupted. Enter Patris, a hideous giant frog monstrosity, just staring him down with pure, unadulterated malice. Known for toxic tongue whips and insane jumping mechanics, looks like the warm-up tutorial is officially over. Abilities. Honestly, this overgrown pest was an absolute nightmare to hunt. Plus, it dropped 0 magic cores. Talk about a total scam he usually avoided. Yet here he was today, staring down this giant, slippery tongue. Why? Because it made the perfect squishy punching bag for his brand new toy. Without a second thought, our hero launched forward, dodging a deadly venomous whip by a mere hair. A cocky grin spread across his face. Bingo. His crazy theory was dead right. With a flashy slice through that toxic tongue, he could now literally predict the monster's attack patterns. The giant toad shrieked in absolute agony. And to top it off, our overpowered protagonist decided to end this farce right here and now. But wait, just as he wound up for the final blow, this desperate frog practically launched itself into orbit. Reaching the absolute peak of the sky, it completely flipped over, crashing down. Headfirst like a squishy, disgusting meteor. Oh, and it opened its massive jaws wide, completely determined to swallow him in one single gulp. Caught off guard by this insane speed, his brain screamed at him to dodge. But nope, he stubbornly threw that logic out the window, betting his entire life on the goblin boss's ultimate gift. He braced himself, leaped straight up, and charged right at the incoming frog. It was an epic mid-air stare-down, and with a deafening boom, the final clash violently exploded. Boom! The massive toad instantly went completely limp. Now its heavy corpse was just decorating the dirt beside our hero. Even he could not believe his own luck. A flawless solo victory. These new claws were absolutely insane. The sheer power and pinpoint precision were completely off the charts. Once again, he had to tip his hat to that dead goblin chief. Armed with this god-tier weapon, our guy felt totally invincible. But first, he had a massively important errand to run. He needed to lock in his official class, a crucial step to leveling up and honoring his late teacher and fallen buddy. Flash forward 6 days. Our determined hero finally stood right in front of the legendary selection tower. Grabbing a class should be a total walk in the park, but he still felt totally jittery. Taking a deep breath, he bravely marched through those intimidating giant gates. Rumor had it, the one handing out jobs today was not the usual boring admin. Even though this grand hall looked exactly like his turf, suddenly our clawed hero noticed something incredibly sketchy. A super creepy dark gift box literally popped up right in front of his face. His gamer senses were absolutely tingling. To open the mystery box or not to open it, curiosity completely killed the cat. He totally gave in and popped the lid. Instantly, a bizarre shadow shot out, followed by a ridiculously massive explosion. Coughing through the smoke, our hero suddenly found himself staring at a giant grinning demon. Ah yes, the exact type of creepy monster he absolutely hated the most. The weird entity aggressively beckoned the human to step closer. With a theatrical bow, it introduced itself as Jack in the Box. It dramatically welcomed our guy to the grand consecration of the first blessing. Jack smugly asked how he liked that flashy entrance. But our totally unimpressed hero just deadpanned. Do all you demons have to be this incredibly extra mamapo? The demonic clown proudly declared that top-tier comedy was literally essential for his kind. Then he busted a gut laughing when our hero angrily demanded he skip the circus act and drop the class menu. Wiping away a tear of laughter, Jack finally agreed to get down to business. The clown instantly summoned a glittering list of epic classes. This demon actually handpicked the best options just for our guy. All he had to do was double-tap the fancy holographic panel on his favorite choice. Annoyed by the endless reading, our hero suddenly found himself totally sweating over the options, even though he came in here with a solid plan. Sure, your class does not completely define you, but you definitely can. Not just pick blindly. Every class gives a massive broken perk called a colonial privilege. In this world, the absolute meta choice was the Marauder class. Why? Because it gave a ridiculous boost to raw, unadulterated strength, the single most important stat on this entire brutal continent. Every legendary top-tier player was practically a marauder. Our guy knew that if he followed in his late teacher's footsteps, he could easily sponge off those proven combat tactics. But nope. He decided to totally rebel and lock in the hunter class. Jack clapped his giant hands in delight, praising this spicy choice before instantly starting the magical download. As the creepy chanting echoed, our hero felt his very soul permanently level up. He stood there completely mind-blown. He was now a certified official player with double health growth and 3 shiny new hunter skills. Oh, and he finally unlocked the fabled magic power stat. The annoying clown popped back in asking if he was absolutely thrilled with his new toys. Our guy just smirked, saying he needed a live test dummy first. He bet that this sweet double health perk would let his HP absolutely skyrocket every time he snacked on a goblin core. Then he eagerly checked his brand new magic stat. Womp, womp. It was completely pathetic. Looks like he was going to have to eat a mountain of cores to buff that up. But while weighing his new stats, our hero knew he had to pick one unique skill. The demon hyped it up as the ultimate beginner's blessing, listing epic options. But our guy just demanded, camouflage of the jeweled lizard. Jack blinked. Say what now? The clown tried to push flashy, overpowered skills, but our stubborn hero wouldn't budge. Amused, the demon granted, it warning him not to come crying later. Boom. Skill acquired. When Jack asked why on earth he picked a lizard skill, our guy hit him with the classic, Am I legally obligated to answer? The clown's smile vanished. His form twisted, sprouting 3 terrifying extra eyes. The raging entity declared his curiosity would be fed, forcing the truth out of him. The towering nightmare reminded this puny human to show some respect to a superior being. But our unfazed hero just stared back. Do you really want to know? Instantly, the terrifying demon shrank back to clown mode. Just pranking you, relax, he laughed, slapping on his original smile. Our hero was left absolutely fuming at the cheap scare. Jack casually praised him for surviving this long, teasing that the real nightmare starts now. Grabbing his class info, the demon waved goodbye, wishing him total prosperity. Finally, our guy stepped out of the crazy tower, but cut to an alleyway. He was sweating absolute buckets, huffing and puffing, grasping his chest. Turns out he was completely terrified. The aura of that high-ranking demon had almost suffocated him. If just picking a class was this scary, how was he supposed to survive an entire hell filled with these monsters? Major doubts were creeping in. Later that night, even his master roasted his weird skill choice, but our boy stood firm. The master quizzed him on why the first unique skill is the Holy Grail. Naturally, our hero knew the lore. After the freebie from class selection, grabbing new skills costs an absolute fortune. You either buy them or loot them from a dead monster's corpse, but the market prices are a total scam. So the only real way for a broke adventurer to thrive is to farm them by hunting. But since trash mobs only drop trash skills, you need to slay absolute bosses. That makes the very first free unique skill an absolute lifesaver. No grind required. The master demanded to know his secret master plan behind the lizard skill. No holding back. Cue the Galaxy Brain gamer logic. Camouflage of the jeweled lizard lets you freely shift around your exact stat points for a short time. It is the ultimate adaptive buff. The master was speechless. Sure, but weren't there flashier, stronger options? Our hero scoffed. Those so-called better skills take forever to learn or cost a fortune. He needed something that didn't drain his pathetic magic power. Plus, unique skills can be upgraded. Even with a 0.5% growth rate, this lizard trick was going to be his absolute wild card. It perfectly covered his low magic weakness. The master was stunned by this min-maxing genius showering him with praise. Grinning from ear to ear, the master promised to help squeeze every drop of potential from this skill. He suggested a new prey way, better than basic goblins. Cut to the next morning. Deep in the woods, our hero reached the coordinates. And boom, there it was, the target. Our guy knew this beast was a total loner who hogged a massive territory. Perfect for uninterrupted farming. Beating this guy meant sweet practice and massive points. The ultimate stare-down began. The core consumer charged at him like a freight train. Time for the new skill. He instantly dumped every single stat point into strength and agility. He completely abandoned his endurance, betting it all on a flashy one-shot kill. He thought he was the ultimate predator, but wait. Alarm bells rang in his head. The monster smoothly dodged his fierce claws, delivering a devastating kick right to his face. Oh, snap! Massive beast totally overwhelmed our discount Korean Wolverine. Having finally seen its signature dive bomb attack in action, the hunter knew his boosted agility was the only reason he wasn't a bloody pancake right now. Our guy quickly figured out the monster's ultimate move had a major cooldown phase. A direct hit would have meant instant game over, so he had to end this before the creature could reload. But when his counterattack swung wide and completely missed, he thought his speed stat was too low. Nope, he was just forced into a brutal emergency parry. And just like that, our hero ate a massive tail whip to the face, flying backwards. Surprisingly, this happy little accident allowed him to grab onto that oversized appendage. The light bulb went off. His unique skill was literally custom-made to slaughter this weird kangaroo-pig hybrid. Dodging another one-way ticket to the afterlife, he looked up to see the beast hovering directly overhead. The mutant roared, winding up its giant tail for the ultimate home run swing. But right as it brought the hammer down, its target had vanished into thin air. Plot twist, our boy was already chilling right behind it. The creature panicked, desperately, trying to hit the brakes, but the hunter just smirked, knowing the boss fight was already in the bag. His sharp claws ripped through the monster's chest like wet paper, making it shriek and spit blood. As he buried his blades deep into its flesh, the oversized pig finally dropped dead. Our absolutely exhausted hero tried to suck some oxygen back into his burning lungs. Now that the mutant was officially taking a dirt nap, he dramatically flopped onto the ground, pointing his bloody claws at the sky. Honestly, he couldn't believe he won with such ridiculous ease. Mu Hyuk realized the battle was over, way too fast even for a thin-skinned mob. The clever guy realized that mixing his buddy's claw weapons with his own crazy stats and skills had practically turned him into a walking cheat code. Speaking of loot, it was time for the unboxing. The lucky protagonist was finally holding the juicy monster core. He popped it into his mouth like candy. Pleasantly surprised, it didn't taste like goblin garbage. The system pinged, leaving him absolutely speechless. His strength stat just shot up by 0.16%. He did a mental happy dance since that tiny number equaled eating 6 whole nasty goblin cores. With his inventory packed, he hit up the shop. The grumpy admin calculated his gruesome haul of tailbones, livers and tendons, handing him 1,190 points. Not too shabby. After a solid month of grinding this dungeon, his bank account was sitting at 29,450 points. He had been slaughtering beasts non-stop, racking up 360 kills in record time. The stat boosts from those gourmet cores were just the cherry on top. But while he daydreamed about how these tiny monsters were total cash cows compared to goblins, he was rudely interrupted. The demon admin basically told him to take a hike if he wasn't buying anything. But our boy wasn't done yet. He announced he had a serious transaction to make. The annoyed black-winged merchant rolled his eyes, assuming the kid wanted cheap cigarettes. But when Shamu dropped the bomb that he wanted to prepay his rent, the demon called him a complete idiot for wasting money in an apocalypse. Shaking his head, the demon asked if there was any other stupid purchase he wanted to make. With a straight face, the hunter declared he was officially dodging the mandatory survival hunt. The demon's jaw practically hit the floor as he yelled that skipping the event would cost a massive 10,000 points. Even after hearing that outrageous fine, Shamu wouldn't budge. The admin warned him that the first forced hunt dropped insane legendary loot. Still, our stubborn hero just shrugged. This absolute lack of bravery from such a strong player made the demon laugh out loud. Entertained by this cowardice, the admin accepted the bribe, mocking that running away was technically a survival strategy. Boom rent and penalty fees cleared in one swipe. Shamu knew perfectly well that joining the event meant easy kills, god-tier equipment, and maybe even a jackpot skill ring. But let's be real, staying alive is way better than getting shiny new rings. If he joined the first hunt, our solo player would get ganged up on by massive guilds, basically turning him into free experience points. Instead, the sneaky genius planned to rob the elite clans blind. He would raid their private hunting grounds while those idiots were busy killing each other in the event. After all, flashy gear is nice, but cold hard points are what actually keep you alive. Feeling like an absolute mastermind. Our boy strolled back to his base, but the moment he opened his front door, his smug smile vanished. His elderly master was crumpled on the bloody floor. Panicking, Shamu rushed over to check his pulse. The tough old man coughed, playing it cool by saying he just tripped into a few minor slaps. Shaking his head, the worried disciple dragged his stubborn teacher onto a soft bed, demanding to know who dared to touch him. Unbelievably, the trash mob responsible for the beatdown was none other than Park Hun-soo, that two-faced snake Shamu had unfortunately met during his very first week in this nightmare. That rat Hansu. He only tried to use our main character for some quick points. He definitely wouldn't have dared to approach the master if the old man was actually at full health. When asked why he got jumped, the teacher sighed. Some greedy guilds were forming an expedition squad, and they desperately needed his intel. Since most of this continent was totally uncharted, finding new zones meant hitting the ultimate jackpot. So they beat him to a pulp just for a tiny crumb of info on an unknown area. Our hero was seriously baffled. Couldn't those thugs just, ask politely? But the bruised master just laughed it off. Why ask nicely when your target is weak and easy to find? The old man then praised the kind heart of his student. Hearing this completely set Mu Hyuk off. The master quickly warned his hot-headed pupil to avoid any direct clashes with a thug who might come back for round 2 since the bad guy still needed that intel. But our angry protagonist just scoffed. As a total newbie, the system literally stopped older players from killing him. He had absolutely zero reason to be scared. However, the teacher who had tanked the beating purely because of his stats dropped a reality check. The bully was still way too overpowered. Mu Hyuk finally agreed not to go picking fights, but he would definitely stay ready. Later on, while strolling through the creepy woods, our guy noticed something awesome. Spamming his skills like a madman had actually leveled them up. He also knew perfectly well that he desperately needed more health and stamina for this incredibly long hunt. So he quickly tried to balance out his messy stats. But wait, what was that? Our hero suddenly found himself staring right at a rainbow snake. It was a super rare forest monster, and literally every part of it could be sold for crazy high prices. He could grill its meat for dinner, or use it as elite monster bait. Our guy was totally thrilled to find a walking jackpot this early in the game. But the creature definitely noticed him. The panicked noodle charged right at our Korean Wolverine. With a single brutal thrust, Mu Hyuk pierced the monster's upper jaw. Boom. The legendary rainbow snake was instantly one-shotted. Mu Hyuk realized he could farm way more points than he ever dreamed of if he just kept finding these squishy little gold mines. With dollar signs in his eyes, he swore to wipe out every single monster in the area before the first hunt ended. Shortly after, he struck a cool fighting pose once again. This time, his opponent was a massive golem. Heavy silence fell over the forest as man and rock stared each other down. The giant golem attacked first, smashing the ground with an absolutely devastating punch, but our slippery hero easily slid right behind it. Whipping out his trusty goblin nails, he cleanly sliced the rocky giant's head right off. Just like that, the Korean Wolverine bagged another ridiculously easy win. When he saw that the loot he dropped from this rocky chump could be sold for 3,000 points, his jaw dropped. This forest was basically an all-you-can-eat buffet of points for newbies. He was super smug about his unique skill choice, seeing how it easily let him rack up more than 12,000 points in no time. He happily chuckled, remembering the completely dumbfounded look on the general administrator's face. If only he had a camera for that masterpiece. But while he was busy thinking about how this entire forest was technically owned by a major clan, and how everyone else was probably struggling out there, his ears twitched. He suddenly heard a rustle. Startled, our hero instantly popped his claws out. How on earth did someone manage to sneak up on him without triggering his radar? Seeing those sharp claws, the hidden stranger was definitely impressed. Mu Hyuk, who had been way too distracted counting his massive loot, figured this must be another crazy rookie. Only a newbie from the 13 rounds would be insane enough to skip the main hunt, since this beginner's forest only dragged in fresh meat. Our guy quickly calculated how to shift his stats for a potential brawl. But just as he aggressively yelled at the unseen intruder to show their face, a fiery redhead casually stepped out of the bushes. The moment he saw the fierce girl gripping her dagger, it instantly clicked. He remembered her back during his miserable first 7 days in this hellish tutorial while he was sprinting for his actual life. A terrifying mutated hound had ambushed them, while he and the rest of the useless rookies desperately ran away. Our supposedly brave hero was screaming the loudest, but right then he had seen something absolutely insane. Even though he never caught the crazy girl's name, her image was burned into his memory. While everyone else was crying in sheer panic, she was the only absolute madwoman who charged at the beast. While the others cowered in fear, she completely held the front line all by herself. Our deeply embarrassed protagonist had been one of the cowards who fled that day. Snapping back to reality, the girl glared and asked if he was a first year. Phew. She definitely didn't remember his cowardly face at all. Our hero smoothly gave a super shady answer when she asked if he was solo, since this wild card was way too unpredictable. The scary redhead interrogated him about how long he had been farming here, but our guy casually dodged the question once again. With a sly smirk, he pointed out that they clearly had the exact same target, so they really should just cut to the... With the chase settled, the mysterious lady called dibs on the east, giving him the Wild West and strictly warned him to stay off her turf. Turns out this X-Men fangirl had a burning question. She asked if our fake Wolverine was cosplaying with those claws. He totally denied the nerd allegations, claiming he only picked them for maximum stabbing efficiency. She giggled clearly, not buying his edgy excuse, which made our tough guy blush like a tomato. Tossing him a quick good luck, she vanished, leaving him thoroughly annoyed. Seriously, who jumps out of a random bush just to mock someone's weapons? While grumbling about her sassy attitude, he wiped off his sweat. Thank heavens that wild encounter didn't end in a bloodbath. Still, our hero kept his guard up. In this dungeon, backstabbing was basically a sport. But suddenly, remembering her angelic little giggle, his cheeks flushed bright red again. Slapping his own face, he snapped back to reality. Time to hunt before another weirdo popped out. Slicing monsters was definitely the best therapy to clear his distracted mind and clock out early. As the hunt dragged on, his stamina gauge was flashing red. Stumbling out of the forest, he realized this solo leveling gig was absolutely exhausting. Man, having a trusty meat shield or an ally would be a lifesaver right now. Wait, that sassy girl was solo too. With her crazy combat skills, shouldn't she be living it up in a top-tier guild? As he spiraled into detective mode about her lone wolf status, he violently shook his head. Nope. Not his problem. All he cared about was getting a hot meal and a soft bed. But, speak of the devil. A wild goblin appeared. Time for one last midnight snack before heading home. The poor green guy blinked in confusion. But boom. Our predator snatched it by the neck before it could even squeak. Without spilling a drop of blood, he dug right into the ultra-weak mob to claim his real prize. Bottoms up! He tossed the nasty green core into his mouth. But while gagging at the absolutely garbage taste, someone gasped. He froze in absolute terror. Standing right there was the bush girl from earlier. The horrified lady stared at him like he was a total psycho while his soul left his body. His darkest secret was busted. He internally screamed. Why did she have to wrap up her hunt at the exact second he was snacking? Still, there was a glimmer of hope. Miss Judgy Eyes probably didn't see the tiny core. Looking at her violently pale face, she totally thought he was eating raw goblin hearts. He frantically waved his hands, claiming poverty made him do it, but she wasn't having it. Broke or not eating monsters makes you a complete lunatic. As he sweat-dropped, trying to explain, she drew her weapon, disgusted, to be sharing a forest with a cannibal. Our hero begged for a timeout to explain, but her ears were closed to the crazy ravings of a supposed maniac. She was fully locked onto kill mode. He quickly pointed out how absolutely ridiculous it was to murder a guy without even hearing his super tragic backstory. That actually made her pause. He boldly declared that if she wanted a deathmatch, he'd bring it. but chatting it out like civilized adults would save them hospital bills. Xinghe popped his metal claws, striking a combat pose, and asked her to make her choice. According to our fiery redhead, crazy people are dangerous alive. But surprisingly, she lowered her weapon suddenly, claiming to be a peace lover. He had exactly 5 minutes to prove his sanity. The fake goblin slayer fully committed to the lie, claiming he totally ate the heart, but not out of madness. She mockingly asked if raw goblin was some 5-star gourmet meal. Cue the violins. He launched into an Oscar-worthy sob story about his poor disabled master. They were so broke that his basic hunting skills couldn't even buy instant ramen. So, to save grocery money, he decided to turn dungeon monsters into his daily buffet. The lady raised an eyebrow. Why eat a humanoid goblin when perfectly good monster boars exist? Sweating bullets, he doubled down on the lie, swearing that goblin meat was a crucial survival diet. Sure, the texture was absolute garbage, but he claimed it was an acquired taste. He even offered her a bite, which she violently rejected with pure disgust. When asked why the heart specifically, he smoothly lied that it was a great substitute for healthy greens. She looked ready to vomit. He wrapped up his TED Talk stating that while it was gross poverty forced his hand, ultimately, they were both just trying to survive the harsh world. His dramatic speech actually left her stunned. Repopping his shiny claws, he swore he wasn't a cannibal. But if she still didn't buy his tragic master-student tale, she could totally catch these hands. After all, he had a master to feed, and he refused to die today. The fiery redhead decided not to swallow his crazy story, but let him off the hook anyway. Honestly, she was just too dead tired from hunting. Plus, she lacked hard proof that he had completely lost his marbles. Even so, she shot him a glaring threat. One hint of crazy, she would personally introduce his face to the dirt. She generously allowed him to keep hunting, but strictly banished him from her personal loot zone. Trust was clearly off the table. With a dramatic hair flip, the prickly lady stormed off, muttering insults that he totally heard. Phew. Dodged a massive bullet there. The relieved protagonist swore to be way sneakier when munching on monster corpses. His improvised lie totally saved his skin this time. He sighed deeply, already dreading the sheer exhaustion of dealing with her spicy personality again tomorrow. Fast forward, and a brand new sun cheerfully rose over this brutal nightmare continent. Our guy strutted onto the scene, absolutely glowing with newly bought gear energy. He had happily slapped down his hard-earned points on some buffalo leather armor, a rank 7 lightweight chest piece that casually drained 45,000 points from his wallet. He marveled at his awesome new drip, dreaming of epic armor combos. But the grind never stops. He still needed to farm 50,000 more points for that sweet, sweet skill ring. 4 days of easy grinding. Well, it would have been easy if not for Miss Grumpy Pants glaring daggers at his soul. He confidently assumed she was just eagerly waiting for his grand entrance. But when he smugly brought it up, total denial. Instead, she barked that they needed to draw their territorial lines for the day. Map borders established, she aggressively warned him to stay off her turf. Our hero mentally rolled his eyes, like he actually cared, but as she started storming off and grumbling, he boldly called out to her successfully, dialing her irritation all the way to max. He cheerfully suggested a basic name exchange, since they were stuck as awkward forest neighbors anyway. Instant rejection. Shot down in flames. Our guy felt his own temper flaring up at the sheer audacity of this extremely stubborn lady. No name, no trust, despite him acting like a perfectly normal, non-suspicious guy. So rude. It reminded him of his old master's legendary blunder. Trusting an opponent cost the old man 3 whole teeth. Taking that massive loss as a life lesson, he figured she might have actually been chill in the real world. Here, not so much. Annoyed, our hero snuck off for a quick smoke break. But plot twist. Unfamiliar voices echoed through the trees, sending his danger sensors into overdrive. He threw himself behind a tree. New players in the zone. They must have ditched the main hunt, too. The sneaky smoker peeked out immediately, recognizing the 2 sketchy newcomers. They were definitely from his tutorial round, though honestly, he only remembered them because they were clearly foreign players. The dynamic duo of Doom was busy chatting about player killing. Easy points. Free gear. 0 honor among these thieves. Listening to their scummy little podcast, our hero realized their main target was none other than Miss Grumpy Redhead. His gamer brain started calculating. Taking out the trash now would definitely secure his own safety. If these guys ambushed her, they would totally monopolize his farming zone. But wait, were they high level? He had 0 clue about their stats, still 2 versus 2. The math checked out. It was definitely time to rumble. Sneak attack. The first guy duel, the second. Flawless strategy. But suddenly, he paused. He had just casually planned cold-blooded murder without even blinking. When did taking a human life become as easy as ordering takeout? That intense goblin farming really messed with his moral compass, but enough existential crisis. The sneaky thugs were already making their move, about to disappear into the brush. Morality could wait. Time to play the stealthy savior.
He locked onto his targets. The heavyset dude told his buddy to hide in stealth mode while he scouted for the fiery girl. Bingo target acquired. The redhead was currently dancing a deadly tango with a massive, terrifying bug.
It was a tough mob. The big guy ordered his partner to camp in the bushes. Our hero watched from the shadows, figuring they were just waiting to third-party her.
Honestly, he bet the angry lady could easily wipe the floor with both of them.
But hold on. One thug was suspiciously weaponless, while the other was winding up for a dirty, cowardly sneak attack.
No way was he letting that slide first objective flank the blonde guy. Meanwhile, the redhead's epic boss fight with the giant ant reached its climax. The camper realized it was the perfect time to steal her loot.
She cleanly decapitated the monstrous bug victory. But our hero's gamer senses tingled. The player killers were about to launch their toxic ambush time to hit the gas. He immediately activated his unique skill, heavily buffing his speed and stamina for a rapid takedown. Stealth was his backup plan, but down below in the arena, the tired redhead exhaled, amazed at the bug's crazy defense. She reached for her epic loot, but suddenly, whoosh, flying shurikens. Our hero facepalmed in absolute annoyance. Ranged weapons. He totally should have seen that cheap trick coming.
Attacks!
The thug cocked back his arm, ready to unleash a storm of projectiles. Our boy bolted forward to intercept, but time simply wasn't on his side. Lethal flying blades were already slicing through the air. "Get down!" Mu Hyuk roared. The girl whipped her head around, eyes wide with shock. Right on cue, a hefty thug waddled out from the shadows, visibly fuming that his prey had a bodyguard. But sadly, two blades already found their mark, biting deep into her shoulder and thigh. "Who invited this pest?" the beefy criminal barked. And just like that, the chaotic deathmatch of round 13 kicked off. The heavyweight charged the injured girl like an angry bull, but she miraculously parried his barehanded strike with her trusty dagger. "Are you seriously spamming skills?" she scoffed. Ignoring her sass, the brute yelled at his buddy to crush our hero instantly. An order the crusty old thug was more than happy to obey. Mu Hyuk's instincts flared. The geezer was winding up for a massive flying kick. Plan A block and tactically retreat. But the moment that boot flew through the air, our hero froze. Wait, this old man actually knows martial arts. Bam. A textbook kick landed directly on the young man's face. The geezer erupted into obnoxious laughter, boasting that his combat stats were leagues above the typical trash of round 13. But plot twist. Our edgy hero was just standing there utterly baffled because the kick literally tickled. The thug's smug grin vanished, replaced by pure confusion. My turn. Our hero deadpanned effortlessly, decking the old man in the jaw. Down he went while Mu Hyuk just scratched his head at his own absurd defense stats. Meanwhile, the ginger heroine finally realized her beefy opponent was a specialized kickboxer. His speed was ridiculous. He rushed her down like a freight train, shamelessly spamming his combat skills yet again. With no time to dodge the monstrous strike, crossing her arms in defense was her only hope. The physics won out and she was launched backward like a rag doll. The heavyweight smirked, clapping mockingly at her stubborn survival skills despite bleeding out. He stepped forward for the finishing blow, but suddenly the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. A fist was zooming right toward his face. Miraculously, the big guy managed to block our hero's sneak attack. "You sneaky little rat," he spat, demanding to know where his old buddy went. Mu Hyuk couldn't help but chuckle at the sheer hypocrisy, calling him a rat when they literally jumped a girl from the bushes. Hilarious, with a cold grin, Mu Hyuk offered to rearrange the fat guy's face. But suddenly our boy got caught in a vicious hurricane of fists. This beefcake wasn't just a basic thug. He was a high-level marauder, yet Mu Hyuk tanked every single hit. The brute was absolutely mauling. "If you didn't have those stupid system perks, you'd be a puddle on the floor just like my dead friend." "He's just taking a nap," our hero corrected casually. But the brute seized the opening, smashing right through the protagonist's guard. "You want a medal for sparing him?" he mocked before burying his fist deep into Mu Hyuk's gut. The impact was brutal. Our smoking hero gasped, entirely shocked that actual pain was bypassing his cheat-level defense. Even so, his eyes burned with an unyielding savage fire. This sheer stubbornness forced the marauder to respect his grind. Grabbing Mu Hyuk by the hair, the thug gloated about his vastly superior martial arts mastery. Our hero ground his teeth in pure annoyance. "So, are you planning to kill both of us?" he asked quietly. The thug paused before bursting into maniacal villain laughter. "Duh. That's literally how a sneak attack works. Are you going to cry for mercy now?" The criminal flexed, declaring that begging was completely useless in a deathmatch. "Who's begging?" the young man whispered with a chillingly calm tone. He gently pressed his fist directly against the giant's heart. The thug scoffed at the pathetic tap. "I'll ask you one last time," our protagonist muttered. "Are you truly trying to take our lives?" The man arrogantly smirked a yes.
Mu Hyuk's eyes went utterly blank with mock sorrow.
Boom! The lethal execution skill triggered instantly. Blood violently erupted from the big guy's mouth. The thug's eyes bulged in pure shock. Realizing a secret weapon just eviscerated him, he crumpled to the dirt, lifeless. Mu Hyuk blinked, genuinely disturbed by his own brain. Taking a human life felt exactly the same as squashing a low-level goblin. No guilt, no trauma, just the sweet dopamine hit of victory. Man, the system really messed up my morals, he sighed.
Before he could contemplate his lost humanity, the bleeding ginger lady limped over. Still totally bewildered, she knew this random guy was her absolute savior. "I just bumped into you guys by accident," he shrugged, pointing out that her past mercy totally backfired on her. When she suspiciously asked why he bothered saving her, our hero dropped the most calculated excuse ever. "Basic math, they would have ganked me next." Defeated by his logic, the fierce redhead's cheeks turned bright crimson.
Thank you," she mumbled shyly. Mu Hyuk just stared at her in dead silence. Feeling awkward, she glared at him. "What? Sorry, could you speak up?" he trolled with a straight face. "The shockwave damaged my eardrums."
She fumed with absolute annoyance, but he shamelessly demanded a replay, claiming it was the ultimate healer for his battle scars. Flustered to the max, she practically yelled another "thank you," vowing to repay her debt.
Our smug hero just smiled greedily, demanding to hear it a third time, wasting another second, earning him a fistful of collar. But suddenly a dumbfounded grunt echoed from the tall goon, who was still absolutely flabbergasted that his supposedly overpowered buddy just bit the dust. Watching this clueless boomer casually stroll up with blind faith in his fallen comrade made our main character realize one glaring fact. This dude lacked brain cells. Then the vibe drastically shifted. The Ice Queen was furious. Her blazing aura practically sent the surviving crook packing, deciding to bolt for his life. She snatched his own throwing star to return the flavor, totally ignoring our hero's frantic flailing as he tried to stop the bloodshed. Spoiler alert, he was way too slow. Wham! Sharp steel met the runner's skull with a loud thud, dropping him instantly. Exasperated, our hero asked why she went full assassin mode on him, and she deadpanned that clapping back at literal murderers was just basic common sense. Feeling noble, the main character played the pacifist card, arguing that attacking a fleeing coward was overkill, though deep down he totally validated her murderous rage. But then she casually flipped the script, pointing out that his moral compass was broken, roasting him for standing there like a decorative lamppost during the kill. This completely stunned him. As awkward crickets echoed through the spooky woods, he nervously asked if looting the corpses was cool, which she nodded to with maximum sass. Enter the Mark's Harvest. A neat little trick to siphon points from the newly deceased for a hot minute or forever if registered at the tower. Our guy boldly claimed these two shiny marks were basically her saying thank you, but she instantly shut down that fantasy. Apparently, screaming a warning and actually throwing punches were two completely different tiers of help. He could only marvel at how incredibly difficult this girl was as she barked at him to act as her crutch. He agreed, though he couldn't help but whine about his own minor scratches, prompting her to violently remind him of her very broken leg. He sighed about how the thieves ruined their grinding schedule, making her suspect a massive guilt trip was incoming. But he quickly backpedaled, pointing out that mini-boss thieves drop elite loot. She begrudgingly agreed, given their high power levels. As she started ranting about how she would have swept the floor with them, minus the sneak attack, the hero smiled. The Ice Queen was actually melting into a massive complainer. Recalling her previous sharp words, he spaced out. When she snapped her fingers asking what occupied his single brain cell, he panicked and played the amnesia card. But the girl mercilessly used the chance to roast him for having early-onset dementia. This fired our hero right back up as he finally remembered his burning question. Why was a solo beast like her entirely guildless? That stopped her complaining tracks as he pointed out it was super weird for someone with her overpowered specs. She paused, the sass fading, before dropping a massive lore bomb she used to run with the 6 poles. Our guy's jaw dropped, knowing this was an elite all-Korean powerhouse faction formed by 6 strangers. But when he dug into why she went solo, her face instantly switched to a do not enter sign. He felt utterly scammed, realizing his big question just hit a brick wall. Giving up on peeling this emotional onion, he bit his tongue in silence while she resumed whining about her fragile bones. Fast forward through the misery, they finally reached the tower. And as our guy dramatically began to whine about the agony of playing pack mule, the angry princess snapped back that she was the injured one. Shoving him away, she proudly declared she was a strong, independent player now. This totally stung his pride, considering how much he babied her here. But she casually tossed him a simple, "We are even now." He turned to leave, mentally kicking himself for playing White Knight when she softly called out. Throwing him a bone, she remembered his earlier attempt to exchange names.
She officially introduced herself as On So Young to the flustered main character who dropped his name too.
Out of nowhere, this terrifying girl unleashed a heart-stopping angelic smile. Cupid's arrow hit him hard, but romance was instantly ruined by a creepy black-winged admin popping up, jump-scaring him back to the cruel tutorial phase.
The winged extortionist noted his early return due to near-death experiences and happily slapped him with a ridiculous 10,000-point medical bill. After the pricey band-aids, the admin asked for more business, so our guy flexed his 2 looted marks. The blonde demon's eyes lit up proudly, praising him for finally embracing the dark side of player versus player farming.
Slaying monsters is cute, the admin preached, but hunting players is where the real cash is at. This triggered traumatic flashbacks of the dead goons and So Young's scary eyes judging his fake pacifism. Irritated by the memories, the flustered young man aggressively shoved the greedy demon away, lying through his teeth about finding 2 random guys who coincidentally unalived each other. Yeah, he didn't buy that nonsense at all. Moving on, our guy decided to inspect his shiny new loot. After wrapping up his tower errands, he grumbled about that pesky demon practically begging for a smack. Despite being cranky enough already, he wondered if his sketchy new buddy had scurried back to the woods. Before opening his status screen, he drooled over those thug marks. 80,000 points that could buy him a seriously juicy skill. Mu Hyuk was fighting some heavy greed right now. Still, he slapped himself awake and focused on the grind.
Our hero chose to keep leveling up like a maniac.
Glaring at the tower, he swore to squeeze the truth out of those demons someday. Next morning, a massive, ugly frog in the forest sensed danger. It whipped out its gross tongue to strike, but our guy totally ninja jumped it from behind. He skewered the overgrown toad with his nasty claws. Boom. Another ugly mob bites the dust. Our MC grinned like a loot goblin. The results were absolutely chef's kiss, totally worth bleeding like a stuck pig. Rush of the Fearful Baroque. A broken, unique skill that doubles every stat except magic. With this cheat code, hunting these terrifying forest monsters was basically a goblin tutorial. Next, he crept up on a giant golem for a cheeky backstab. But wait. The VIP free trial suddenly expired. The good times ended instantly. Dodging a massive punch, he cursed the skill's pitifully short duration. It left him feeling like a lead brick when it wore off. Definitely needs practice. Mu Hyuk scrambled up the stone arm, cursing the second drawback. The insanely long cooldown thanks to his garbage magic power. Fun fact. Magic and magic power are totally different. The latter runs on a timer 0 MP required. Upgrading, it means shorter cooldowns and way better spamming potential. Sadly, magic power was immune to his fancy new buff. And the worst part about this cooldown, massive brain-splitting migraine it triggered. Once the headache vanishes, the skill is finally ready to fire again. Snagging the monster core, our hero did some quick math. Pairing this with his first skill would turn a 20-minute cooldown into 40, fair enough for being overpowered. He realized this buff was his ultimate trump card. Once he levels up, it's going to totally carry him through the nightmare trials ahead. Later near the tower, he glanced at the village and his jaw dropped. A mob of hunters was marching out. The forced hunt was already over. This completely ruined his day. Now he had to ditch his VIP high-profit farming zones and crawl back to the boring newbie spots. Just as he was packing up his loot to go eat dinner, some annoying guy blocked his path. Of course, it was the local bully who tracked him like a bloodhound. When our hero politely asked how the hunt went, the meathead took it as a personal attack. The bully accused him of being a smart aleck, completely ignoring our guy's excuses. Exploding like a cheap firecracker, the jerk yelled at him for ditching the hunt. The MC just blinked. Is it really that deep? The bully barked back that it absolutely was. He ranted about respect being a two-way street, whining about how his so-called lackey ghosted him, leaving him looking like a fool. Pumping his chest, he declared that clinging to his team was the only way to not die here. "Consider this my final mercy," he barked. Shoving our hero back, he ordered him to attend the next forced hunt or else. And when the psycho whispered he'd either be a lucky charm or a corpse, Mu Hyuk felt a serious shift in the vibe. The bully raised a fist at our guy's deadpan stare, but a sudden shout interrupted his temper tantrum. "Boss, we got business." Scrambling away like an obedient dog, he tossed one last pathetic threat behind him. Our hero watched him go, piecing together the weird attitude change. Why so desperate for a meat shield? It clicked. The bully had just experienced his very first murder. Fast forward 1 whole month, our MC treated his ghostmaster to an absolute feast. The old man gaped at the expensive spread. The MC just shrugged. "My wallet got fatter, I need better gear, and I wanted some good grub." This earned a classic boomer scolding from the master, who totally saw right through his Earth Kid junk food cravings. Since ghosts can't actually eat greasy ribs, the master settled for a ghostly smoke instead. Puffing away, he dropped a serious reality check. "Kid, the forced event is under 72 hours away." Crushing his cigarette, the master ordered his student to rip tear and go completely berserk. The upcoming death game, which he agreed to, obviously.
He then called out that meathead bully for dragging his poor disciple into this mess. And honestly, our boy was already leagues faster than this entire continent. Beck finally realized this so-called fruitful hunt was actually a bloodbath. Taking a life changes you. The master dropped some hard truths. You need a whole deck of wild cards to survive. He told our hero to toss that soft heart right out the window. But surprisingly, our guy was already mentally prepped for murder. Shocked, the young man flashed back to his very first kill. He swore to engrave his master's harsh advice right into his soul. With that heavy mood set, his armless master let out a sigh of relief. He quickly apologized for killing the vibe with such dark talk and logically suggested time to stuff their faces. Grabbing a chicken leg, our hero realized his master totally knew about his secret first kill. Even without saying a word, the old man knew. Fired up, our protagonist swore to survive this hellish event and escape this cursed continent with his teacher. Fast forward 3 days later, boom! The ominous portal ripped open. The contestants were sweating bullets knowing this forced deathmatch was a one-way ticket. Gearing up for the incoming slaughter, our hero took a deep breath, calming his racing heart by flexing his massive level-ups. Locked and loaded, he boldly stepped right into the swirling abyss. Flash. He spawned in a creepy dark zone, rocking a super edgy purple moon surrounded by the other tributes. While everyone was panicking about what to do next, a weird entity just popped into existence, throwing out a super casual greeting. The demon spotting the fresh meat introduced himself as Carol, the totally not evil hunting enforcer. But some impatient meathead barked at him to skip the tutorial and get to the point. Carol just laughed, teasing the guy for having absolutely zero chill. Our main character watched this demon shrug off death threats like bad comedy. Still grinning, Carol snapped his fingers and summoned the grand map for this glorious bloodbath. Jaws dropped to the floor as the enforcer proudly revealed their new playground, the Tower of Time. Mu Hyuk and An So-young stared in absolute shock at the massive glitch in reality. The demon smirked, dropping the rules. Clear condition, ascend to floor 5. Sounds easy, right? But here's the classic manhwa catch. The final floor only unlocks once every 10 days. Until then, you are trapped. With a sadistic smile, Carol added that anyone failing to enter gets deleted from existence. A literal trash removal system for the weak. As our hero realized exactly why everyone wanted to punch this guy, Carol tossed out shiny new smartwatches for everyone. Rule 2. No free rides. You need a whopping 100 kills just to sniff the final floor. And then came Rule 3. Monsters drop sweet loot like tower tokens worth 1,000 points each, plus some totally overpowered skill rings. Then Carol dropped the real bomb with a cheeky wink. You can totally just steal other people's watches to hijack their kill count. Cue the absolute panic from the crowd. Our main character instantly read between the bloody lines. Just assassinate the top rankers to skip the grind. Brilliant, but terrifying. Finally, rule number 4. Campers get exposed. Stay on one floor for more than a day, and your location goes public. The meathead bully broke out in a cold sweat. His minion whined that moving a massive squad would be a total nightmare. Beck pretended to stay cool, scoffing that demon tricks were nothing new. He hyped up his goons, saying their power in numbers was unbeatable, but internally, he knew these guys were just convenient meat shields to throw under the bus. Meanwhile, the smart lady figured out Rule 4 was designed to force endless death matches. Our lone wolf protagonist, however, was sweating bullets. Skipping the tutorial hunt meant zero street cred, so nobody wanted him. His only choices, the backstabbing bully or the terrifyingly gorgeous redhead. Well, that was an absolute no-brainer. Pumping himself up to go shoot a shot for an alliance, his jaw hit the floor when she strutted right over to him first. Staring into each other's eyes, the tension was real. Our guy was completely mind-blown that the server's top tier was asking to party up. An So-young smirked, pointing out that a sad little loner like him desperately needed her carry. She impatiently demanded his answer. Chuckling at her bossy attitude, he gladly accepted. But before he could even blink, BANS! She grabbed him by the collar and took off sprinting. So-young yelled that they needed to blast through the early stages since the timer was already ticking. Getting dragged like a ragdoll, our hero realized this girl was an absolute unit. Watching this unfold, the bully threw a massive tantrum, screaming at his useless minions to charge in. Beck was absolutely seething over getting rejected, but calmed his fragile ego by plotting a very painful murder for our hero. Up above, the demon enforcer crossed his arms, super annoyed that these impatient monkeys skipped his villain monologue. Whatever he muttered, deciding to just post the terms and conditions at the front door. Meanwhile, our hero, who usually loved speedrunning, begged his new partner to maybe use a tiny bit of strategy. But the fierce redhead just yelled that time is money. Chatting was just burning their precious time. The young man sweated, wondering if he'd teamed up with a total newbie. Watching her partner nearly sprint headfirst into a trap, An So-young decided to finally open her mouth, just as our main character hoped she asked which mysterious staircase they should pick. After a highly strategic pause, our hero boldly declared, "Who cares?" They were flying blind anyway, and his partner totally agreed. But so did the demonic enforcer who literally spawned right behind them. Giving them a near heart attack, the creep explained that all paths shared the exact same hellish difficulty. So basically their choice meant squat. The fiery young lady instantly roasted the demon for constantly jump-scaring the poor humans. With a smirk, he claimed it was just his friendly way of helping them chill out. Our hero, realizing this guy was just as obnoxious as that clown demon, asked if this staircase challenge was a copy-paste of the village trial. When asked to explain his nerdy theory, the protagonist questioned if every single team got their own private dimension. Mu Hyuk pointed out how the game admin magically appeared to every contestant at the exact same time. But the math wasn't mathing. The demon enforcer tilted his head in pure confusion, so the young man dumbed it down. They didn't have to sweat about player killing since the demons desperately wanted to keep this floor a secret. Bingo. The entity smirked at his big brain energy, tossing him and his teammate a flashy smartwatch. He told them to treat it like a luxury brand since it tracked the days, and pressing it once showed their kill-to-death ratio, while a double tap revealed their exact coordinates. Basically, it acted as a flawless mini-map for every new level. Oh, and pressing it 3 times. That popped open the global leaderboards. Before vanishing, the demon dropped a hint about juicy rewards, warning them that any loot left on the ground would be deleted at reset. The smart lady realized the catch. If you drop your gear during a midnight brawl, it turns into pixel dust. But corpses. Yeah, those stick around. Our protagonist quickly realized what a massive headache hoarding their precious items was going to be. With the tutorial over, So Young glared and asked if he conveniently left out any scammy fine print. The enforcer just chuckled, saying they'd never find true happiness without a little blind faith. Talk about ironic coming from a literal demon. Her partner just shrugged, joking that he always picks option C on multiple choice tests anyway. The girl rolled her eyes and let him lead, proudly declaring that a top-tier student like her relies on brains, not wild guesses. The enforcer grinned, realizing this funny guy was the exact same lunatic Jack warned him about. Suddenly, the demon realized he actually did forget one tiny, life-threatening detail. The staircases magically swapped locations every single day. Oh, and everyone gets teleported back to floor 1 on day 9. But the demon maliciously kept that a secret. At the exact same time, our clueless duo climbed up into a brand new zone, completely decorated in peak demonic, terrible interior design. They checked their shiny new smartwatches for coordinates. But wait, the young man stared blankly, totally lost on how to read the screen, even though they were on floor 3. His partner sighed, explaining that X meant horizontal and Y meant vertical. Guessing, the game tracked everything in meters. Dealing with all this nerdy math gave our hero a massive headache. He craved a smoke, but the lady slapped the idea down, warning that the smell would attract every monster nearby. Putting the nicotine cravings on, the duo memorized the staircase's exact coordinates. After all, that was their only escape route. Sneaking around like ninjas, they spotted a mob of the infamous ramen soldiers marching their way. So Young whispered that she'd seen these ugly mugs at the castle ruins, which totally shocked our hero. The castle ruins were a high-level nightmare zone. How did she survive? The lady smugly revealed her secret. She just window shopped from the outside and ran away. Honestly, that was peak survival logic. The young man activated his gamer brain to analyze the mobs. Rumor had it these things were absolute newbie crushers if you hadn't been grinding your stats. He figured he could solo them here, but definitely not back in the ruins. Flashing a confident smirk, he told his partner these guys were just free experience points. Mu Hyuk laid out the master plan. He'd be the frontline tank while she played the sneaky damage dealer. Without hesitating, he triggered his overpowered unique skill. By burning up his precious magic points, he could max out his physical stats to insane levels. Stacking his buffs like a true tryhard, he temporarily unlocked a god-tier rank 6 agility. Zooming forward, he aggressively taunted the giant lizard, leaving it totally bewildered. Mu Hyuk blitzed the discount killer Croc, who panicked and tried to block with a rusty sword. But our protagonist just laughed at the pathetic defense. He instantly shredded the beast with his razor-sharp claws. However, seeing the absolutely pitiful damage numbers pop up, the hero sweated. His attack was weaker than a wet noodle. But hey, a scratch is a scratch, and our hero... He blitzed forward like lightning. His insane speed left his partner completely speechless. So Young couldn't help but wonder. Was this guy actually just rank 7? Boom, the ramen lizard soldier was instantly shredded by goblin claws, letting out a huge sigh of relief. Our hero was genuinely shocked at how ridiculously easy that was. While his partner joked about being completely useless, he awkwardly begged her to please stop with the self-deprecating humor. Still, she swore she had never seen anyone move that fast, sweating bullets. He confessed it was just a temporary skill buff, but he clearly had some serious ulterior motives brewing. Fidgeting nervously, he struggled to get the words out. The fiery redhead finally snapped and told him to spit it out. so he gently reminded her of his unique culinary tastes.
She blinked in confusion for a second. Then the absolute horror set in. She was teamed up with the monster muncher An, absolutely lost her mind, screaming at him for craving a mid-battle snack. But he desperately argued that his energy levels were running on fumes. He needed those cursed calories.
Just to keep fighting, he practically begged on his knees to let him dine. Plus, they had to carve up the carcass for tower tokens anyway, right?
The defeated redhead just threw her hands up. She let the madman enjoy his grotesque buffet. Our hero cheerfully thanked her for the meal. He sprinted toward the dead lizard like a kid in a candy store. She visibly gagged. Remembering that this specific species had a tasty core, he eagerly dove right into the gory mess, digging through the guts with a terrifyingly joyful grin. Bingo! He of the beast! He casually chowed it down, absolutely traumatizing the poor girl. This gross snack boosted his endurance by a decent chunk. Better than Koilos, at least, though a health stat would have doubled it. And while our hero was totally hyped about this freakish power leveling his partner, just sighed. She nagged him to find the tokens. But seeing him vibrating with goblin energy, she officially diagnosed him as a total psychopath. Soon enough, our crazy main character grabbed a shiny tower token. It looked just like a coin. The girl immediately marched off while he awkwardly yelled after her, asking about splitting the loot. She spun around fuming and yelled that normal people just split things 50-50. Grumbling, she told him to hurry his butt up. They had to grind kills if they wanted to survive this mess. Despite annoying his teammate, our guy literally had to eat those nasty monster marbles to level up. But for now, he kept his disgusting diet a secret, though he might confess his weird habits later if it meant winning the game. Meanwhile, up on floor 2, a massive brawl wrapped up. The human squad easily stomped a beast, feeling pretty smug about their flawless victory. It was a total walk in the park, meaning everyone could easily farm their required kills. But wait. Their sketchy boss sneaked off into the shadows. His master plan: backstab his own crew on the final day, steal all their hard-earned kills, and skyrocket up the scoreboard to clear the floor. Bayou was no fool. He knew that rank meant everything here. The demon literally promised sweet loot for trying hard.
Checking out the leaderboard, he realized the ultimate cheat code was stealing everyone else's kill-to-death ratio. Just as he was giggling over his evil scheme, a clueless teammate walked up, snapping him out of his villain monologue. The guy cheerfully mentioned that they probably wouldn't run into enemy squads in this low-level mob zone. While the lackey praised their teamwork, our toxic leader mentally put a target on the guy's back. How dare he not want to steal kills? The naive lackey kept yapping, crediting all their success to the boss before trash-talking a certain familiar duo. This caught our petty villain's attention immediately. The lackey was totally roasting our main character, mocking him for charging off like a lone wolf instead of joining their glorious boss. Bayou scoffed, claiming he totally carried our hero back in the day before getting rejected. But honestly, the big bad bully was just seething with pure jealousy. Our hero ditched him just to hang out with a pretty girl. Picking a fight while dragging a girl along was pure suicide, especially with this lizard freak dead set on slaughtering him and his supposed girlfriend. The desert swordsman suddenly lunged forward, bringing down a massive strike that our boy barely blocked with his claws. His arms shook violently under the beast's absurd strength, but right on cue, a familiar voice ordered him to fall back. He didn't need to be told twice, and immediately bailed. The ramen lizard prepared to rush him, but abruptly realized the tables had completely turned. The crazy redhead was already midair, unleashing the legendary strike of the magic warrior Riffidan. The panicked monster desperately raised its heavy blade to block, but this absolute madwoman wasn't having any of it. The lizard's weapon instantly fractured, shattering into a million pieces before the beast was brutally skewered. Our main character's jaw practically hit the floor, watching his terrifying teammate. An So Young smugly declared that their wildly opposite fighting styles actually made a killer combo. He mentally sweat-dropped, frantically reworking his entire survival strategy to factor in this walking natural disaster. Snatching up the loot token, the fiery girl sharply reminded him that it was her turn to collect the drops. She then glared at him. He chugged the core to level up his stats, his mind racing about his endless to-do list. Farming these mobs was a guaranteed ticket to getting overpowered, but honestly, their battle plans sucked. The real issue: his lovely partner was a marauder with a completely unblockable skill. He really wanted to trust her, but trusting a lady who hogs all the kills is a huge rookie mistake. Remembering his master's warnings, our paranoid hero nervously pitched a brand new strategy. Realizing he was treating her like a walking red flag, she glared while he babbled about teamwork. And So Young sighed, crossing her arms and letting him speak. Shocked she had not stabbed him yet, the young man suggested, ending their old routine where he plays the punching bag while she steals the glory. Instead, he offered to gracefully turn the monsters around so she could backstab them stress-free. When asked for her feedback, the warrior girl sarcastically noted that this foolproof plan was clearly just his way of avoiding a knife in the back while finally splitting the loot. 50-50. He nervously tried to defend his logic, but her terrifying death glare completely shut him down. And So Young snapped that they were ride or die now. All this paranoid plotting was totally useless. They were stuck together until the end. Realizing he just massively offended his only ally, our hero looked like a kicked puppy. Cut to the next battle where he took out his frustration on a poor monster. He absolutely bullied the creature, knocking it into next week. He grabbed his trusty goblin chief nails and aggressively pinned it to the floor. The monster stood zero chance against this combo. He shredded its armor with his sharp claws, flexing every muscle to lift the heavy beast into the air and delivering an epic body slam. Taking the monster guts off his hands, the fight was done. His partner teased him for doing a cheap Wolverine cosplay, which he loudly denied. Mu Hyuk yelled at her to stop slacking, but she pointed out that they already killed 3 mobs and he needed to chill out. As they bickered like an old married couple, she secretly marveled at his ridiculous growth rate. He was treating dungeon monsters like absolute trash mobs. Meanwhile, our clueless protagonist was whining about finding the core he actually needed. She smiled, thinking about the massive points they scored in the forest. Just as she tried to guess who his overpowered master really was, he tossed her the loot and demanded his turn. He asked why she was staring into space like a weirdo. Flustered, she blurted out that she only lets her guard down around people she completely trusts. Boom! Instant tomato faces for both of them. He eagerly begged her to repeat it, but she panicked and desperately screamed that it was lunchtime. He kept poking the bear, but she fiercely shut him down with a classic. Nutrition is vital for Hunter's excuse, so they sat down to eat. And So Young coughed dryly, admitting she only brought a single water bottle like a total newbie. She tried to mock his lack of prep, swearing this dungeon was completely bone dry, but he smugly pointed at a nearby fountain. She rolled her eyes, saying drinking magic water was suicidal. With a dramatic smirk, our boy realized she was missing a crucial survival hack. Reaching deep into his pockets, he whipped out purification powder, a dirt-cheap item that magically turns sketchy puddle water into premium spring water. And So Young sweated, admitting she only packed weapons like a battle maniac. He casually tossed her enough magic powder to last the whole raid. Flustered by his weird flex, she insisted on paying him back, but our dollar store millionaire laughed, claiming he had tons of it. She stressed that pure water was a luxury here, meaning she totally owed him now. He gave a sly grin, admitting that making her owe him was the grand plan all along. Mu Hyuk then got weirdly deep, saying he found it crazy how fast she adapted to the dungeon life. She had crushed 2 attackers without blinking, leaving him wondering if she was this savage back home. He rambled about how this fantasy world changes people, twisting their morals, while some traits stay true. Her brain completely short-circuited, trying to connect his edgy philosophy to a cup of water. So he finally dropped the bomb, confessing that she was the real reason behind his sudden try-hard mode. She always made lightning-fast choices like she possessed a cheat sheet for life. He even admitted her sheer strength totally eclipsed his own. Her iron will terrified him because it brought chaos, yet beneath it all, she was just stubbornly defending her morals. Mu Hyuk firmly declared she owed him absolutely 0 favors. She was his guiding star, his ultimate beacon of hope, and he vowed to defend their shared ideals in this wasteland. Pouring out his gratitude, he thanked the fierce lady again, only to instantly ruin the mood by adding, he still did not trust her. He was merely handing over her hard-earned loot. Mu Hyuk finally grasped the awkward guy's logic, eyeing the shiny gift and swearing to use it wisely. Meanwhile, Young felt incredibly blessed to munch on condensed energy capsules, even if they tasted like flavorless chalk. Trying to be helpful, our quirky protagonist suddenly chimed in, shoving some questionable snake jerky in her face. She hard passed on the weird snack and asked what on earth he was doing. The dude casually mentioned he was checking the leaderboards. She scoffed, calling it a total waste of time for noobs, but peeking at the top players sent chills down his spine. Spotting his own master chilling in 4th place, Mu Hyuk desperately wondered what insane cheat codes they used. Flashbacks hit him hard, remembering his master calling this hunt a literal meat grinder. The old man bragged about his massive success keeping it low-key, just to avoid looking like an arrogant jerk. Mastering the Marauder class was his golden ticket to godhood. He then glared at his disciple, ordering him to cast aside his morals and survive this living nightmare at all costs. Hesitation, he warned, would leave him missing a limb exactly like his old teacher. He had to cross the line to stay alive. Snap! His partner yanked him out of his edgy flashback, reminding him they needed an exit strategy. Mu Hyuk grimaced, hating the idea of playing the villain in a world that punished being nice. Our stubborn hero just wanted overwhelming power to live by his own chaotic rules. He vowed to grind tirelessly, doing things his unique way without breaking a sweat, interpreting his master's grim advice in the most wildly optimistic light. Fired up his determination to get insanely strong, ignited boom, the exit was finally in sight. But seriously, they had blindly wandered for half a day on this cursed floor. His exhausted partner crunched the numbers, finding that they had marched 4.5 kilometers already and still needed another 2.5 to finally escape this hell.
As the hero painfully noted their 13 hours of getting hopelessly lost, he realized this magic tower was absurdly gigantic. A total scam of space. Mu Hyuk stopped dead in his tracks. Approaching the exit meant bumping into rival murder hobos. His partner sharply warned him to burn the exit coordinates into his brain. Suddenly, the creepy enforcer's rule echoed in their heads. Player locations would be broadcasted every 24 hours. They only had 11 hours of stealth left. Panicking slightly, the lady suggested the stairs. The dude cleverly reminded her that climbing to a new floor hit the reset button on that 24-hour timer. But she countered, claiming a hardcore farming montage on a single floor was the real pro-gamer move. Our core-munching hero totally agreed, drooling over the juicy monster loot, but his practical partner interrupted with the concept of sleep. 6 hours of shut-eye seemed fair, leaving them with 5 glorious hours of absolute free time. With evil grins, the chaotic duo instantly agreed to spend their break mercilessly grinding for XP. Weapons drawn, our sleep-deprived heroes charged right back into the slaughter. The hero ran the bloody math time enough to massacre 50 lizards, which meant bagging at least 40 sweet, crunchy cores to cheat his stats higher. Dreaming of all that power, a terrifying, greedy smirk warped his face utterly. Creeping out his poor partner, Ding the 5-hour murder fest finally wrapped up. Groaning about his totally exhausted muscles, his partner still praised their insane 18-hour hunting marathon. Meanwhile, Mu Hyuk was practically dancing with joy over the loot. Raking in 86 tokens was awesome, but his secret monster marble diet had spiked his stats like crazy. He practically fainted from happiness checking his glowing status screen. If he kept this absurd leveling pace until tomorrow, his absolute broken skill would rocket every single stat except magic to rank 6. He would be a literal god of destruction for 5 whole minutes. Blessing his past self for picking such an overpowered, unique skill, he giggled. But he quickly slapped a poker face on deciding to keep his ridiculous core-eating hacks a complete secret from his teammate. Let her think he is just naturally gifted. Suddenly, the redhead barked at him to keep his eyes peeled for random boss encounters. Brushing her off, he smirked, claiming his spider sense was already tingling. Bam. Welcome to level 4 of the dreaded tower. The girl squinted at the weird, gloomy mine shafts, but our boy's eyes lit up like a real estate agent. He happily explained how this rocky dump offered endless free building materials for a super-secret monster-proof nap cave, but the fierce warrior An So-young shot that idea down instantly. A box big enough for both of them. Yeah, totally not suspicious at all. Realizing his logic was completely flawed, our core consumer pitched a new plan. Let us dig a hole. Seeing her blank stare, he proudly explained the legendary art of the military foxhole. A flawless tactic for sneak attacks. So-young narrowed her eyes, suspecting this young-looking guy was secretly a hardened veteran. Sweating profusely, he swore he just saw it on a television show. The swordswoman just chuckled at his panic. They had exactly 24 hours on the clock, so they better get moving. Our hero noticed floors 2 and 3 shared the exact same layout. He frantically scoured the area for the perfect dig site, eager to save precious time. But So-young dropped a heavy reality check. Hello. We literally do not have a shovel. Just as he wondered if the dungeon had a tool shop, So-young yanked his shoulder, his cheeks flushed as she pushed him down, whispering fiercely for him to look away. Stuttering, he tried to play off his flustered reaction, but the fierce lady forced his gaze toward the shadows. Following her finger, his eyes widened. Right there in the oppressive gloom, a lone fallen dwarf was wandering the mines. So-young silently signaled to stay in stealth mode. Our hero, practically blind in the dark, remembered that dwarves usually hunt in massive packs. The swordswoman urged total caution, but then her jaw dropped. Our guy somehow saw through the pitch-black darkness and confirmed the monster was totally solo. How he inherited the night vision eyes of his late goblin buddy, a cheat skill he just discovered in this pitch-black cave. A bittersweet smile crossed his face. Even from the afterlife, his little goblin bro was still carrying the team. A dirt floor. A monster conveniently holding a shovel. The setup was so ridiculously perfect it felt like a trap. Still, our Korean Wolverine popped his deadly claws, snicked. We cannot just sit here forever. With blood-pumping adrenaline, the dynamic duo ambushed the lonely dwarf, eager to secure their shiny new loot. Seconds later, the dust settled, and he was utterly baffled. This shovel was lighter than a feather. It looked so incredibly heavy when the dwarf swung it around. So-young clapped her hands. Time to dig dirt, boy. Suddenly, the hero's stomach growled violently. Mealtime. But, plot twist, he is an incredibly picky eater. Dwarves look way too human for his cannibalistic comfort. Gross. Rolling his eyes at the terrible menu options, he dragged his amused partner to find a safe kitchen. Soon enough, they hit the jackpot. A cozy corner perfectly shielded from random dungeon jump scares. Our hero sighed heavily, noting they burned 30 whole minutes just surviving. He started barking, digging instructions like a sweaty foreman, only for So-young to fiercely sass him back. I know how to dig a hole, genius. So how long is nap time? They agreed 5 solid hours of beauty sleep would do the trick. To avoid waking up as a monster, midnight snack, So Young pointed at some rusty minecarts. Perfect camouflage. With a bit of heavy lifting, the genius disguise was complete. They stepped back to admire their masterpiece, a flawless underground bunker. Too bad they had to keep moving every single day. Realizing the clock was ticking, the pragmatic swordswoman ordered an immediate bedtime. Meanwhile, our modern-day hero panicked. "Wait, we do not have a smartphone alarm." So Young just rolled her eyes at his modern problems. Technology. In this brutal world, your survival instinct is your alarm clock defeated. He suggested a simple pact. First one up kicks the other awake. Deal. So Young sighed, muttering about how unglamorous sleeping in a literal dirt pit was. With zero fanfare, the duo crawled into their respective graves. I mean, foxholes, crammed into the tiny space he swallowed his complaints. Staring at the dirt ceiling, he marveled at his own evolution. Waking up without a digital alarm. Was this adaptation, or had he just mutated into a crazy dungeon survivor? Back on Earth, he was a massive snooze button abuser. Whatever. More stats and power would eventually solve his existential crisis. But as he drifted off to dreamland, a nightmare struck. A vision of So Young glaring at him with absolute freezing contempt. "You let that murder happen." Gasp. He shot up, drenched in a freezing, terrified sweat. His heart hammered against his ribs like a chaotic war drum. Glancing around the pitch-black pit, he breathed a massive sigh of relief. No monsters, no enemies, just complete, utter silence. Exactly 5 hours had passed. He stretched his aching back, mentally whining about his terrible choice of a dirt mattress. God, I miss a real bed. Shaking off the dust, he crawled over to wake up his sleeping beauty of a partner. Knock, knock. Total silence. He knocked again, slightly louder. Whew. A razor-sharp blade suddenly stopped mere millimeters from his eyeballs. Yelping in sheer terror, he demanded to know why she was trying to decapitate him. Lowering her sword with a smug smirk, she scoffed. "It is called a survival reflex, dummy. Besides, your loud screaming just proved the coast is completely clear." Shaking his head at his crazy companion, they brushed off the dirt and charged back into the dark labyrinth. The hunt continues. The lady was absolutely mind-blown that her partner's wild scheme actually worked, but he just smirked. Basically saying, obviously, I am a total genius. She then started stressing over the ridiculous daily reset mechanics and whatever freaky boss was coming next. Meanwhile, our guy was just drooling over the loot drops. After nearly slipping up and confessing his bizarre addiction to munching on monster cores, she started roasting him about his weird diet. Her teasing totally hit a nerve, but she just cracked up at his grumpy face. But the comedy hour got cut short by a sudden ambush. Our hero peeked at the threat and practically cheered out loud. Oh, sweet joy. It was just those weak, noodle-armed grunts they had farmed before. Sure, they were totally familiar with these scaly punching bags, but this time, the spawn rate had completely multiplied. So Young warned that a mob this massive could instantly wipe them out if they got completely swarmed. But our guy, he popped his claws like a bootleg Wolverine, practically vibrating with the urge to farm some free experience points. Ignoring her frantic warnings to play it safe, he slammed his 2 unique skills and absolutely Leroy Jenkins'd his way straight into the mob. "Wait for my signal," he yelled, leaving her completely speechless. The monsters panicked suddenly, realizing a madman was charging them, even though his aggro limit was clearly capped at just 2 targets. Our hero knew the math. Even with his partner as backup, fighting 3 overgrown lizards at once was pure suicide. Her abilities had a massive cooldown and needed a perfect opening. So the only logical gamer move was to aggressively farm the weaklings first. Flexing his trusty goblin claws, he locked his sights on the precious shiny cores, determined to snatch them all up before the bodies despawned. Bam! The first lizard took a brutal uppercut right to the jaw. He spun smoothly, using his momentum to deliver the exact same devastating strike to the second target. Just like that, 2 giant reptiles got instantly deleted by a guy with goblin hands. So Young was flabbergasted by his absurd damage output. After a lightning-fast looting session, our hero gobbled down his bizarre breakfast, getting 2 whole cores on the first try. That was some seriously blessed RNG. Wiping his mouth, he happily muttered, "Thanks for the food," while So Young watched him looking utterly traumatized by his gross dietary choices. Trembling, she desperately suggested they speed run to the next area. This totally baffled our guy, who was currently buzzing on an energy high. She tried to use logic, explaining that scouting the higher floors and mapping out the boss rotations was basic survival. But the loot goblin inside him protested. "They still had half a day to waste right here," she sighed, clarifying it was not about the clock. They both had over 100 kills anyway. It was time to prioritize hardcore survival over grinding, and grabbing fresh intel was the absolute best strategy. He knew she was right, but the sheer addiction of leveling up completely gripped his soul.
If he just camped here a little longer, he could easily max out to rank 6 health and totally break his character stats.
Desperate to keep the farm going, he hit her with the absolute worst excuse ever. But it is rude to abandon the monsters we already bonded with. Yeah, right. She deadpanned, reminding him that figuring out the enemy team comps was way more important than his imaginary lizard friends. Sweating, he claimed he was stuck at exactly 86 kills. She thought that was plenty, but he passionately argued that hitting a clean 100 was absolutely necessary for good luck. Besides, he had genuinely grown fond of these specific scaly punching bags. Realizing how dumb that sounded, he quickly lied and said it was purely for efficiency. She narrowed her eyes, asking if he was secretly hoarding something. Sweating bullets, he played the innocent card, claiming he just wanted a safe run. Reluctantly, she gave in. Fine. Just a tiny bit more farming, but she laid down the ultimate ultimatum. The second he finished, they were booking it. The difficulty curve was spiking, and walking in blind was a death sentence. She hated giving him his way, but fighting among themselves would literally just get them both killed. Meanwhile, Mu Hyuk felt a chill down his spine. She was staring at him like he was a completely certified lunatic. Cut to a few moments later, and yet another lizard was getting thoroughly skewered by our absolute madman. "Are you done yet?" She screamed, furious that this maniac had overfarmed by 17 extra kills and completely wasted 2 whole hours. The core muncher shamelessly deflected, shilling it essential team-building exercises before desperately throwing shiny tokens at her to calm her raging fury. Deep down, he totally knew his leveling addiction had completely taken the wheel. Panicking, he sprinted after his totally fed-up partner. But old habits simply die extremely hard. Sneaking a peek around the corner, his eyes locked onto another shiny lizard. And to her absolute horror, he instantly went feral again. Moments later, she was screaming her lungs out, completely outraged that he somehow soloed 8 more enemies when they were supposed to be leaving. Roaming the endless dungeon. Bam! She suddenly snapped at him. Our main character shrugged, claiming he was merely enjoying a tiny side quest. But wait! His sharp eyes caught something super suspicious. He eagerly pointed it out to his partner, who totally thought it was just another ugly monster. But looking closer, her jaw dropped. There was literally nothing there. Our confused hero squinted, asking if this empty void was actually the staircase. He rattled off the exact coordinates, prompting the girl to check her smartwatch. Yep. The numbers matched perfectly. Right then, a horrible realization smacked them both right in the face. That sketchy enforcer conveniently forgot to mention one tiny detail. The staircases randomly teleported every single day. Seriously? How annoying. The warrior glanced at her watch, panic creeping in. Tick-tock! They were totally running out of time, and wasting precious seconds on random dungeon trash was not an option. It was time for a desperate high-speed sprint. With zero hesitation, the fierce lady charged forward like a runaway train. Our hero, mourning the tragic loss of his glorious farming route and cursing that stupid enforcer, knew finding the exit was life or death. But of course, just then an ugly mob spawned right at 12 o'clock. Ugh, talk about the absolute worst timing for a random encounter. With an annoyed sigh, the monsters rushed in, only to get instantly sliced into digital confetti by our rushing heroes. And so they violently hacked their way down to the 4th floor. Suddenly, a sneaky mob aimed for the lady's blind spot. But bam, the beast got completely wrecked from behind by our overpowered protagonist. Anne, so young, gasping for air, desperately wondered where the heck this exit was hiding. The hero told her to stay sharp, considering they had grinded for 20 grueling hours. The exhausted warrior stared at him. How did this guy still have so much stamina? Must be some broken, hidden class. She had to admit he was incredibly reliable, even if he looked like a total goofball. Seriously, this insane protagonist leveled up at warp speed, and his raw stats used to just rival hers. But now he left her in the dust, casually soloing 2 heavily armored Roman soldiers like it was nothing. The warrior knew this insane power-up came from his bizarre dungeon diet, and it drove her absolutely crazy that he refused to share his secret recipe. She glared down at the questionable gift he handed her earlier, deeply reflecting on her life choices. But, snap. The hero broke her trance. They finally hit the jackpot, the actual stairs. While the hero grumbled about this super annoying daily exit shuffle, his partner sighed. This cruel mechanic was definitely designed to mentally break the contestants. Everything wiped clean daily, and with a strict 24-hour survival limit per stage, anyone with bad time management was basically doomed. So Young crossed her arms, suggesting they dive into the next floor to farm some precious intel. She glanced at the hero for approval, but the greedy protagonist immediately declared that they needed to start their survival timer the exact second they stepped down. He finally agreed to move, leaving his partner totally stunned. She swore this loot goblin would want to farm forever. The fierce warrior suddenly remembered a veteran hunter's dramatic speech about holding on to hope and morals. Honestly, she seriously doubted anything pure existed in this cursed nightmare. Whatever, and So Young decided to just trust her own raw power,
She brushed those deep thoughts aside, focusing purely on getting stronger until she could finally repay her debts.
Mu Hyuk blinked, noting the creepy scenery looked exactly the same. His partner sighed, explaining that only the monster spawns actually changed. Right on cue, the warrior pointed a shaking finger at a familiar super annoying mountain mob known as the Gnolls. She quickly warned him about their absolute nightmare difficulty, especially since these cowards loved to scream for endless backup. Hearing this, the hero immediately voted to sneak past them and rush to the next zone. But honestly, his real motivation was purely selfish. Gnolls didn't drop tasty magic cores. He pouted, wondering if only the lizard mobs carried the good snacks. Our core-obsessed hero calculated that each floor hosted a specific monster type. That meant 4 distinct enemy pools. But the smart lady quickly corrected him. 5, actually, if you count those pesky ice dwarves. The hero silently prayed the final boss type would drop a juicy core when, boom,
a terrifying noise echoed through the dark dungeon. So Young swallowed hard, asking if he was still crazy enough to push forward.
She nervously added that more intel never hurt anyone. Stepping onto the next mysterious floor, the hero pointed out the totally weird interior design, but his partner was entirely focused on that creepy sound. The ultimate core consumer cracked his knuckles, proposing they hunt down the source. His partner checked the timer, confirming they still had a massive chunk of time before the server-wide reset. She cautiously agreed to a quick scouting mission, but So Young strictly reminded him that they had other floors to check and slacking off was absolutely forbidden. The hero nodded in agreement. With their game face on, our dynamic duo charged straight into the danger zone. The fierce warrior started slashing the stone walls, leaving massive glowing marks. Mu Hyuk totally praised her clever Hansel and Gretel strategy. She proudly explained it would cut down their maze running time, before loudly scolding the lazy hero for making her do all the mental math and map tracking by herself. This left our overpowered protagonist grumbling, totally annoyed that our guy always had the memory of a goldfish. Still, it felt pretty awesome having a reliable sidekick for the very first time to cover his massive blunders. Strangely, this floor was completely dead, completely empty of monsters. That is until his fierce companion twitched her ears at a creepy noise. Before our hero could even babble, she aggressively shushed him to pinpoint that unsettling sound. Realizing it was an incredibly creepy voice, our protagonist snapped his fingers. This totally had to be the dreaded penalty alarm. You know, the one for campers who loiter too long. With a dramatic gasp, he guessed their smartwatches were the noisy culprits. Stealing his nerves, he decided to sneak a little peek at the local monsters and the poor suckers getting chewed up. His partner whispered to not blow their cover. Peeking over, they spotted a chaotic buffet of contestants getting swarmed by an endless zombie horde. The edgy guy with the flaming sword ground his teeth in pure frustration. This arrogant bully swung his fiery blade high, cursing his terrible luck. He wondered why this floor was suddenly crawling with undead trash. Naturally, he blamed his 7 useless teammates, bitterly regretting missing the staircase in time.
Since nobody warned them the maze shifted daily, Mr. Bully was in a hilariously tight spot.
They were racing the clock to find the exit, but the relentless meat shields made it impossible. Just as this raging jerk announced he was ditching the slowpokes to save his own skin, he suddenly noticed something incredibly weird. Why were these brainless zombies actually pointing at him? Annoyed, the fiery adventurer channeled his mana to totally blast the dark. Creeps to kingdom come. His partner whispered her suspicions about this trapped meathead, quickly counting 40 zombies while our hero nervously sweated over the incoming rotting army. He then calmly broke down how this overpowered jerk with his triple skills was probably the only one surviving this mess. The flaming bully actually packed coordinated explosion weapon, enhancement shadow shield, and maybe even skin strengthening, making her realize he could actually be the shining star of the Black Dragon clan. Seeing his absurdly stacked buffs and monstrous magic tank, the bully finally snapped at the undead nuisance. He roared in pure fury, suddenly erupting with a blinding blue aura that totally dropped our protagonist's jaw. The madman started slicing and dicing the horde like butter. Our hero instantly recognized that ridiculous move. It was the gluttony of Mage Roaha, a super rare settler class trick. This cheesy ability let the jerk temporarily steal stats right from his enemies, making him a complete cheat code for creating massive attack windows. Our hero sweat dropped, realizing this stat-stealing nonsense would be a huge headache, since it heavily countered his own setup. But staring down at this chaotic zombie mosh pit, a devious little light bulb went off in his head. Just as his companion coldly suggested leaving the 8 losers to rot, he was utterly flabbergasted when our troll of a protagonist loudly suggested a rescue mission. While she stared at him like he lost his mind, he cheerfully doubled down on his crazy idea. The stunned warrior tried to decipher his mastermind plan, but the hunter just flashed a wickedly evil, mischievous grin. Meanwhile, the bully cleaved another zombie, thinking he finally secured a clean escape route, only to be wall-blocked by another wave of rotting flesh. Drowning in a sea of low-level undead trash,
The arrogant jerk thought he was actually going to die here. He instantly drafted a selfish plan to use his teammates as bait and run. The only tiny issue, he had absolutely zero clue where the exit was. But suddenly, a pathetic scream echoed out. The protagonist dramatically crash-landed onto the scene, faking a totally Oscar-worthy panic attack. Seeing this fresh meat stumble in the bully's eyes lit up with predatory hope. He smugly offered our boy a spot on his team on the condition he acted as a human shield against the horde. But the jerk's smugness shattered when our hero bluntly refused, casually dodging the rotting jaws of death. Then our protagonist loudly yelled about heading straight to the stairs. The entire crowd froze in shock, since that meant he actually knew the exit's exact coordinates. This juicy little detail hooked all the desperate survivors, who immediately chased after him, begging for salvation. But our cheeky hero just spun around, playfully flipped them off, and flashed the most infuriatingly wide smile. Everyone's jaws hit the floor in absolute rage, especially the flaming team leader, who aggressively tore his way through the undead foaming at the mouth to brutally murder the troll who just mocked him. And just like that, the raging chaotic parade sprinted through the zombie mosh pit. The furious leader barked at his useless lackeys to move. The splitting migraine from spamming all his skills at once was completely overpowered by his raw, unadulterated saltiness. And so he went full blender mode on the undead, but after a minute of pure rage sprinting, he realized he totally lost our trolling hero. One of his panicking grunts whined that the zombies were catching up. The leader barked at him to shut his trap. He frantically scanned for their infuriating guide to freedom. Meanwhile, our mischievous hero just casually roundhouse kicked a zombie right in the jaw. The tyrant barked at his favorite punching bag to get over there. Irritated that our weak main character couldn't squash a single undead bug, the brute effortlessly sliced a nearby zombie in half, fuming over how that little rat dared to escape. Oh, he wanted to crush our hero so badly. Meanwhile, after sprinting for their lives, the boss checked his squad's head count. One breathless minion reported that everyone was bruised but breathing. The tyrant grunted in approval, honestly a miracle in this death trap. Suddenly, right when they desperately needed an exit, the glorious door appeared. But just as his squad of goons cheered in sweet relief, their buzzkill boss barked that they still had to survive this hellish floor. The exhausted captain ordered a retreat to level 1 instead of pushing to level 3. Suddenly, the undead horde launched another massive wave. The terrified goons scrambled through the exit and slammed the door, leaving the hungry brain-eaters throwing a zombie tantrum outside. Catching his breath on level 1, the boss noticed the tower's weird layout, since this floor was a literal cave. He immediately wanted to hunt down our hero, but a henchman desperately stopped him. The boss wanted blood for the disrespect, but the minion nervously pointed out that they were completely battered. The squad needed serious healing and a solid nap before throwing any more punches. Reluctantly, the brute agreed. Even a meathead knows you can't fight on 0 health, so he ordered his bruised minions to find a safe hiding spot away from the entrance. Hilariously, our main character was eavesdropping through the wall. He smirked stupidly, proud of his big brain prediction that the goons would retreat here. He sarcastically wished them good luck surviving, while secretly praying they would drop dead. Later, he sneaked back to his female partner, who instantly roasted him for being so fashionably late. He whined that he had to camp in stealth mode. Then our smug hero started bragging about his flawless galaxy brain rescue mission, claiming the zombies actually gave him a dramatic flair. Cringing hard, the girl just slow-clapped sarcastically. Our hero then pouted, asking why she started the party without him while zombie snacks were everywhere. Deadpan, she just pointed at the chaotic noise echoing from above. Some other unlucky team got slapped with a penalty and pulled all the zombie aggro. Our protagonist fake cried for them, then immediately grabbed his loot bag with greedy goblin eyes. Meanwhile, an unlucky extra got cornered in a death trap. Screaming, he unleashed his final desperate anime attack, only to get instantly chomped on the neck. Watching this guy become an all-you-can-eat buffet, our duo realized saving him was a lost cause. The girl suggested waiting out the dinner rush, and our cowardly hero fiercely agreed. Once the zombies finished their snack, the duo tiptoed into the messy crime scene, noticing the poor guy actually took down a decent chunk of monsters. Still, his kill count was nothing compared to the tyrant's massive squad. Our hero grinned like a maniac, stuffing his nearly full inventory with free loot. When the girl judged his creepy happy dance, he defended his pure love for cold, hard cash. She examined the tokens, doing the math, while our boy excitedly noted they had basically hoarded everything except for a few random unsorted scraps. With absolute puppy dog eyes, the greedy protagonist shamelessly begged his partner for all the kill tracker watches. She sighed, literally not caring about ranking points at all. She asked if he at least wanted some shiny armor. Nope, our guy confidently claimed his trusty little hatchet was enough. She brutally roasted his lack of fashion sense, leaving his ego completely shattered. Sulking, he finally checked his stolen watches. Boom, 629 kills sitting right there. A decent chunk of points, but still total trash compared to the 10th place, who had almost 4,500 more kills. Still, our delusional hero smirked, betting he could close the gap in the last 7 days. Plus, our lazy genius refused to work hard. He planned to let the tyrant's massive gang do all the heavy lifting, crushing other players until their inevitable juicy betrayal. The boss was definitely going to backstab his own minions to hog the points. But that toxic leadership would definitely get the brute injured by his own angry squad. And that's exactly when our sneaky hero would strike. A perfect low-effort kill steal. Yawning loudly, the lazy mastermind declared it was time for a break, making his partner sarcastically mock his completely useless floor trip. Deciding they desperately needed a solid 5-hour beauty sleep, they agreed to camp on the first floor. Little did our sleepy hero know this very first floor. Welcome to the Dwarf Cave. A lovely, dirt-filled Airbnb complete with complimentary digging shovels. His partner shivered at the pitch-black staircase, giving our hero the perfect chance to tease her. But the lady crossed her arms firmly, denying any fear of the dark. She just didn't have his fancy night vision eyes. Okay? Meanwhile, our hero crossed his fingers, hoping to bump into some lizards. Thanks to the random reset, they were the only walking loot boxes with cores. Easy money. But the unpredictable reset always kept our hero on his toes. Hitting the first floor, the lady hatched a brilliant plan. Mug a monster for a shovel, then build a cozy dirt bunker for the night. Our hero did the math, betting they wouldn't run into enemy players. After looting the perfect shovel and sweating through some manual labor, their luxurious underground suite was ready. The lady chimed in, noting there were exactly 2 other squads nearby. Our protagonist casually dropped the intel team 1 hailed from China and team 2 from Japan. So Young quickly connected the dots. The eerie silence meant everyone was hiding, terrified of the 24-hour penalty, a fact our hero had just realized. Mu Hyuk smirked, noting the team they robbed was the only squad wiped out. With 0 clashes happening, this whole floor was practically begging for a massive battle royale event. His gamer brain immediately cooked up the ultimate duo strategy. Grab some popcorn, let the other teams butcher each other, and then cleanly steal the kill from the exhausted winner to hijack the scoreboard. But wait! Our hero suddenly paused, sweat-dropping at how utterly villainous his own mastermind plan sounded. His dark thoughts were interrupted by the lady's soft voice. Blinking away his evil scheme, he asked her to repeat it. She looked right at him. Do you really want to return to Earth? Mu Hyuk didn't hesitate. Absolutely. That was his entire driving force. He quickly nudged her to cheer up when her face darkened with gloomy doubts. He casually mentioned how some players got insanely overpowered by staying here for decades, but she sighed. Those overpowered players had been rotting in this hellhole for 13 miserable years. Honestly, the lady confessed her deepest, darkest fear. It wasn't being trapped forever that scared her. It was the horrifying realization that she was getting used to this madness. This twisted world was making murder feel normal. It was turning her into a paranoid mess where every shadow felt like a backstab waiting to happen. And the worst part, sometimes the violence was actually thrilling. She gripped her knees, concluding that this cursed continent was actively rotting their morals and twisting their souls. To stay sane, she needed an absolute goal. The protagonist almost dropped his jaw when he heard her grand master plan. She was going to hunt down the almighty demon god, not to save the world, but to demand why they were forced into this slaughterhouse and absolutely beat the living daylights out of him. She scoffed at the impossible odds. Sure, grinding enough stats to punch a deity would be brutally hard, but just imagining the sweet satisfaction of spitting in the demon god's face made it completely worth it. Hearing her wild ambition, the hero was absolutely stunned. Then a wicked grin spread across his face. Now that was a magnificent reason to stay alive. Our boy totally agreed. He also wanted a little chat with the architect of this death game. And honestly, if surviving just meant grinding for stats, it would get boring really fast. The ultimate thrill would be completely trashing the system's rules. They would devour every ounce of power, flip off the demons, and eventually crash the demon god's throne room. Later that night, staring at their dirt ceiling, our hero had a sobering thought. He had gotten way too hyped up like a gamer. This wasn't a virtual reality, and there was no guaranteed final boss waiting at the end. Only one grim truth remained: this environment systematically corrupted everyone. Adapting meant accepting death as a casual, everyday thing. He finally understood why his partner suddenly dumped her heavy trauma on him. Back in the beginning, she confessed she was too paralyzed by fear to see she had an ally. Everything shifted the moment she teamed up with the protagonist, who was highly amused, learning she originally thought he was a total psychopath. So Young giggled, explaining that the boy actually shared the same flaws as everyone else. Yet she desperately wanted to learn his unyielding mindset because his warmth secretly reminded her of the family she lost. Mu Hyuk chuckled jokingly, warning her he might just be a charismatic scammer. She fired right back, claiming she wasn't stupid enough to trust him blindly. Her paranoia was so bad, she didn't even trust her own shadow half the time. But witnessing his overwhelming aura firsthand, she boldly asked for a selfish favor. She wanted to anchor her broken sanity to his unwavering morals and follow his path until the very end. When he playfully asked why she was getting so sappy right now, she just shrugged, blaming it on a gut feeling right before bed. As she drifted off, the young man stared into the dark. Was he really the only person she had ever opened up to in this hell? His expression hardened. There had to be a root cause for this twisted survival of the fittest philosophy, and all roads led straight to the demon god. He swore to hunt that cosmic jerk down even if the journey was a literal nightmare, or if he ended up as Monster Chow before ever reaching the throne room. He might even lose his own humanity along the way. But until that fateful day, until his blade met the Creator's neck, he would let his blazing fury fuel him. Suddenly, footsteps echoed. A squad of enemy players marched right past our hero's buried bunker. One of them abruptly stopped, eyes narrowing in suspicion. When his clueless teammate asked what the holdup was, the scout whispered a chilling truth. He sensed breathing beneath the soil. The tension spiked instantly as his friend realized that the enemy scout sniffed the air, searching for our duo. He told his boss the targets weren't close. Assuming their prey had already bolted, the search party decided to push forward. And just like that, without a single clue, the danger strolled right past them. Once the coast was clear, the camouflage rock shifted. Our hiding heroes finally let out a massive sigh of relief. An So-young stretched her stiff muscles while the main character checked the clock. They had less than 6 hours left on this cursed floor. Honestly, it would be a total walk in the park if the exit stairs didn't constantly play hide-and-seek. Strutting down the first floor, our totally chill hero casually wished to bump into some ramen soldiers. So-young immediately roasted him for being too relaxed, warning that a monster mob might ambush them. But our hero just shrugged, confident that the two of them could wreck any mob. So-young seriously debated if her partner was a hidden badass or just a complete idiot. Speak of the devil, the protagonist nearly jumped out of his skin when he spotted a fresh squad of scaled creeps. 3 lizards this time. Looks like the daily monster spawn rate just leveled up by 1. As the tension spiked, the warrior girl asked if they were sticking to the usual battle plan. But our boy decided it was time to spice things up. He boldly claimed he would pull their aggro, leaving her to deliver the fatal strike. Flashing her a blinding main character smile, he said he completely trusted her. Boom. Critical hit. She blushed instantly. Meanwhile, our sneaky protagonist just wanted all the sweet experience points for himself. He knew perfectly well he could solo 3 measly ramen grunts. With zero hesitation, he dashed forward, instantly slicing 2 giant reptiles like cheap butter. The last lizard blinked, completely clueless as the fierce girl leaped into the air. Before the scaly minion could even scream, So-young's blade pierced right through its gut. And just like that, the terrifying trio was turned into chopped liver. Our protagonist chuckled, boasting about how easy that was and praising the magic of battle experience. But his sharp partner wasn't buying that garbage. She knew a sudden speed buff didn't just pop out of nowhere. As he happily suggested carving up the loot, it suddenly clicked in her brain. The secret had to be his bizarre monster-eating diet. Catching our protagonist totally spacing out, she cornered him. Hey, is that a system skill? And demanding answers. So-young deduced that munching on monster drops was the real reason behind his insane stat boosts. The hero completely froze in sheer panic. Was it time to spill the beans? He figured she would eventually catch on, considering he practically vacuumed up monster cores like a starving goblin. He had totally planned to share his secret someday, maybe. So-young assumed his deer-in-the-headlight silence meant he was refusing to answer. But the young man quickly waved his hands, sweating bullets, claiming he was just caught off guard. She crossed her arms, convinced that his bizarre eating habits triggered a hidden awakening skill. A light bulb lit up in our hero's panicked brain. He suddenly remembered a legendary ability from the wiki that perfectly matched her wild theory. A super rare passive skill that slightly buffs a player's stats every time they eat something. Since the fierce girl was practically interrogating him, he decided to just roll with it. Claiming he had a god-tier newbie skill was the perfect alibi to hide his true cheat code. But right before the lie left his lips, a heavy wave of guilt hit him. The fierce lady had proven she was a top-tier comrade, yet his master's terrifying voice echoed in his head. Trust is a deadly trap. The old man always warned that trusting someone makes you sloppy, much like an idiot spilling secrets after 3 beers. Spilling the beans might just be embarrassing back on Earth, but in this brutal world, it was a one-way ticket to the graveyard. His hidden card absolutely had to remain in the shadows. Swallowing his guilt, our protagonist slapped on a poker face. He lied through his teeth, falsely confirming her crazy theory about his rapid leveling. Our guy was sweating buckets as his partner leaned in dangerously close, smirking that she just had to double-check. When she pressed him on where he snagged such an overpowered skill, he nervously scratched his head, claiming it was just a lucky drop during a hunt. Falling for his incredible bluff, the warrior girl pouted, super jealous of his ridiculous main character luck. She sighed, totally convinced there was a lazy cheat code way to get overpowered, which our sweating hero frantically denied. Dusting herself off, the warrior excitedly suggested they grind some more mobs while hunting for the exit. The hero enthusiastically agreed. He was honestly mind-blown by how easily she swallowed his massive lie. He sighed internally, deciding it just wasn't the right time to share his ultimate cheat secret. His master's paranoid survival rules were permanently burned into his brain. Plus, the warrior was the kind of ruthless gamer who would do anything to level up. He needed absolute proof she wouldn't backstab him for power. So for the time being, the golden boy would just keep playing the fool. A few minutes later, bam! A clueless ramen soldier caught an axe straight to the dome. His scaly buddies whipped around instantly, locking into battle mode. The hero cheered for his partner's insane attack speed, but she just barked that this wasn't the time for fanboying. Meanwhile, our greedy protagonist instantly ripped open the lizard to snatch his tasty core. Down the hatch, suddenly his stamina spiked to rank 6. Our boy was absolutely buzzing. The young hunter realized his exhaustion had totally vanished. His stamina leveling up was the ultimate game changer. He figured this was just a sweet, sweet bonus. Meanwhile, his partner looked like a walking zombie. She begged to hurry and find the exit, which our hero totally agreed with. But honestly, he felt like he could run a marathon. He scouted for the exit and found it in no time. Score, they still had 10 whole hours left in the dungeon. That meant plenty of time before their spot was exposed. Like a true gamer, he begged to farm some more, but the poor girl was running on empty. She complained that her body was practically shutting down. She whined that she desperately needed a nap, making our guy Sweatdrop apologize and suggest they crash on a different level. Taking the stairs, the main character suggested floor 4 for maximum coziness. He finally realized he had been a total selfish grind goblin, forgetting his partner was actually human. Once on the 4th floor, our battle junkie complained about the lack of lizard mobs, wishing they would just respawn already. With their makeshift beds ready, the exhausted girl declared she needed more than 5 hours, claiming a 7-hour beauty sleep was mandatory to keep up with this leveling maniac. With that, they crawled into their respective sleeping holes and said goodnight. But inside, our guy was practically vibrating with energy, so he sneaked out for a midnight grinding session. Strolling through the mines, he pondered how rank 7 rules only applied to same rank skills, meaning his stamina was flying solo in this hunt. He decided to finally boost his painfully slow magic power, since his rush ability had a way shorter cooldown. Suddenly, he stumbled right into a colony of fallen dwarves, ready to drain his stamina points to buff his other stats disaster struck. He froze in pure horror. His overpowered unique skill was completely ignoring his rank 6 stamina. His brain blue screened. And worse, the monsters spotted him. Red alert. The whole mob charged him at once. Talk about a massive fail. Cornered and confused with his cheat skill, totally glitching out, he chose violence. Time to test his raw, unbuffed combat skills. No hacks, just pure hands. Monster and hunter clashed head-on. One stubby dwarf launched a lightning slash. Our hero dodged by a literal hair, whipping out a brutal counterattack. 2 dwarves lost their heads instantly. He styled on the final one, leaping back before delivering the finishing blow. Just like that, the trash mobs were wiped out. He let out a massive sigh of relief. Thank goodness only 2 had actual weapons, or he would be toast reality check. He could only handle 3 dwarves max right now, meaning his raw combat mechanics needed a serious upgrade. Still, our confused hero desperately wondered what broke his skill. Fights were going to be pure agony without his trusty camouflage. And then, it hit him. The skill only swaps stats of the exact same rank. Forgetting that tiny, crucial detail made him feel like an absolute clown. His cheat ignored stamina because it was his only rank 6 stat. The game just got cranked to hard mode. He was completely addicted to stat swapping. Plus, he did not want to be a burden to his sleepy partner, so solo leveling it was just raw talent and pure grit. Despite wanting to farm those juicy lizard men, he knew, bumping into an enemy squad alone would be instant game over. So playing it safe, he committed to a hardcore, no-skill training arc until the sun came up. Meanwhile, the sleeping beauty was having a total nightmare. A creepy shadow tried to grab her. Instinctively, she delivered a devastating kick right to the family jewels, leaving the creep, weeping as she bolted. But suddenly, the villain snatched her arm and drew a blade. Trapped and helpless, she braced for the fatal strike. Only to snap awake, she shot up drenched in a cold sweat. Right as her partner casually announced she had overslept. He offered to open the pit cover. Still shaking, she mumbled she would be right out. Checking the clock, the traumatized warrior realized she had been out cold for over 7 hours. Groggy, she asked her partner how long he slept. His answer, 0. Her jaw dropped as he casually claimed he was not tired at all. The massive show-off started flexing about his rank up, bragging that his new stats completely deleted his fatigue. The poor girl just stared at him like he was an alien. When did the stamina buff even happen? The hero proudly grinned and said while we were hunting. But one look at his crazy eyes and dripping bloody axe, asking if this idiot seriously planned to farm solo. He awkwardly nodded, sweating bullets while swearing he had everything under control. He tried explaining that these obnoxious ramen soldiers were still spawning in highly annoying packs of 3, which only fueled her growing headache. Hoping to pacify the raging beast, he offered her some snacks. Bad move. She completely exploded, screaming at him for acting like a suicidal lone wolf and needlessly risking his own neck. She aggressively reminded him that if he dies, her own survival rate drastically drops. She yelled at him to take much better care of his quote-unquote partner. That specific word caused a massive syntax error in both their brains. Realizing she just dropped the P word, her face turned beet red. She loudly coughed, told him to just not die, and angrily spun around to hide her massive embarrassment. The flustered girl, still mentally panicking over her slip of the tongue, was shocked to watch him casually juggle 3 scaly brutes at once. Hearing him apologize for the 100th time, she finally sighed and accepted his ridiculous excuse. The spicy argument was officially over, but our oblivious main character was just standing there, utterly lost in the sauce, as he was violently poked. The warrior fiercely demanded a piece of that meat jerky he was happily munching on, which actually made him smile. Handing over the ultimate peace treaty, she began to cynically ponder how absolutely nothing in this cursed continent could be trusted. She bit into the meat smoothly, insulting his cooking by calling it semi-edible, while secretly thinking that maybe, just maybe, her goofy partner was the one exception. Flash forward 4 hours and 15 minutes into day 5, with 23 battered players still breathing. The biggest faction run by that absolute jerk of a bully. It surprisingly bounced back from the brink of death, using shiny health potions. Right behind them was a heavy-hitting squad packing 7 strong members, followed by a rival group of 6. 5 brutal days in, and miraculously only 4 poor souls had actually died. But the real headache started now, as these pumped-up rival guilds were completely dodging each other. Meanwhile, our dynamic duo finally located the stairs. The exhausted warrior begged for a quick breather on this absurdly difficult floor. And who could blame her? These irritating mountain monsters were absolutely infamous for spamming the call for backup button. The maze's cramped hallways made it physically impossible to wipe out a 3-mob squad before they cried for their mommies. Wishing they had a bigger raid party, our boy smartly suggested finding a safe zone for nap time, since only 6 hours remained until the server reset. His nosy teammate raised an eyebrow, mocking his lack of lizard-hunting motivation. He whined that his stamina bar was blinking red and leveling up was his only source of caffeine. But suddenly, foreign chatter echoed from the stairwell. Our hero immediately hit the imaginary panic button, gesturing to quietly backtrack. She didn't argue, and they tiptoed up the stairs like cartoon burglars, successfully vanishing into the second-floor shadows. Down below, the enemy leader loudly pitched the idea of taking a pre-reset snooze. The big boss casually turned to his mob, asking if a glorious 1-hour power nap sounded good to everyone. Unsurprisingly, nobody had any complaints. With a unanimous vote for laziness, the rival squad dropped their gear. From their sneaky vantage point, our boy heavily criticized the boss for his complete noob move of camping right at the entrance. But his sharp-witted partner whispered that this might be a high IQ bait tactic. They instantly clocked the massively buffed dude Howin as the absolute top dog of the group, despite his supreme resting villain face. Suddenly, a bald lackey nervously approached the leader, suggesting it might be wiser to move away from the dangerous choke point. Howin just smirked, casually mentioning that a hidden sentry was already keeping watch. But before they could relax, a mysterious voice chimed in from the shadows, sarcastically praising the boss's brilliant leadership skills. To this guy, his teammates were just disposable meat shields for his rank-climbing dreams. Hoenn coldly warned Renoa to keep her trap shut if she wanted to keep breathing. He bragged about how flawlessly his Grandmaster plan was unfolding and how he was hoarding all the good loot while taking it easy. He declared that the only thing that actually mattered in this hellish tower was the almighty scoreboard, meaning they needed pure power and their little trio of elites were the ones carrying the dead weight to earn those sweet rewards. Then the creep gently grabbed her neck, threatening that if she dared to mess up his perfect little scheme, he would end her on the spot. He absolutely refused to let anyone else steal his glory, even if it meant tossing her in the trash. But the crazy lady didn't even flinch. Renoa just cracked a psychotic smile, grabbed his face right back, and called him a fascinating psycho, revealing her burning desire to watch this twisted plan come to life. Naturally, this weirdly toxic flirting made all the single guys in the room aggressively jealous. With that settled, Hoenn smugly praised his crazy partner. Meanwhile, our main character's crew watched this entire cringe fest and immediately labeled them a match made in psycho heaven. Mu Hyuk noted the guy's insane obsession with the rankings, while his party members desperately wanted to just jump out and ambush them. But our big-brained protagonist realized they were bound to crash face first into the Chinese team eventually. So Young pointed out the howling mutts up ahead. She suggested they take a quick breather, only to catch our monster-eating hero grinning like an absolute lunatic. When questioned about his creepy vibe, he swore it was just his totally normal resting face. Yeah, right. Having no other choice, she dropped the subject and asked if he actually planned to fight the Chinese team head-on.
Our boy smirked. He wasn't that stupid. Leaning in, he whispered a downright diabolical master plan. So Young instantly blew her top at the sheer insanity of it. Forcing him to literally clamp a hand over her mouth, Mu Hyuk explained that clashing with this ruthless kill squad was totally inevitable.
And since those guys were obsessed with rankings, their ridiculously strong and brainy leader would be a massive headache.
So what's a hero to do? Use the dog monsters as free meat shields, of course. To seal the deal, he suddenly grabbed his partner's hand. Her face instantly burned bright red as he smoothly declared, from the very bottom of his heart, that this crazy scheme would absolutely fail without her, hook, line, and sinker. Hearing that cheesy line, the flustered girl snapped back to reality and furiously ordered him to drop her hand. Our classic tsundere agreed to the plot, but warned our protagonist not to get himself killed, threatening to ditch him if he did. He just laughed and thanked her. Meanwhile, the Chinese team was marching through the dungeon. The wild-looking player guessed the floor was packed with rivals because of the non-stop monster howling. But wait, that made zero sense. The 24-hour penalty definitely hadn't kicked in yet. Owen narrowed his eyes. Why did the barking start the exact second they resumed their march? Tracking people in this maze was nearly impossible. And then, the terrifying truth finally hit him like a truck. The bald member asked what was wrong, but the panicked leader just screamed at everyone to take cover. They had walked straight into a trap, but the team was completely frozen in shock. The jaws of the trap had already snapped shut. Cut to a very familiar face sprinting for his life, trailing an absolute ocean of angry monsters. Yep, it was our crazy hero. He figured the ultimate gaming strategy was clearing massive mob packs all at once. His big brain tactic: wait for the Chinese team to start moving, let them wander right into a choke point of the maze with zero escape routes, and boom! With perfect timing, the leading lady flashed the signal. Our duo sprinted into action. They whipped out their weapons, slicing and dicing everything in sight, just to pull maximum aggro. Right on cue, the Knoll horde went absolutely wild. Thanks to the girl memorizing the map and marking the walls, they navigated the maze flawlessly. This troll tactic required insane speed and perfect map awareness. They just needed to kite enough angry dogs to doom their rivals before anyone realized the scam. Back at the trap, the leader desperately ordered his squad to fall back. The bald guy hesitated, confused why the monsters were chasing a single target. But Hoenn screamed that the barking was getting louder. Some absolute madman was playing the piper and leading the swarm right to them. Checkmate. Before they could even blink, the doom train arrived. The Chinese team watched in pure horror as our protagonist came sliding in, hilariously screaming for help while dragging a tsunami of beasts. Completely baffled, the rival squad yelled at the crazy kid to get the heck away from them, but the genius team leader instantly saw through the act. This guy was intentionally passing the aggro baton. He was using a few vanguard monsters to drag the entire dungeon down on their heads. Just as he frantically yelled for a full retreat, guess who showed up so young, pulling a second wave of gnolls, and here came the cherry on top. She locked eyes with her partner in crime. While the trapped Chinese team panicked and bickered over what to do next, our hero blasted right through their formation. He faked a strike at one of them, wildly swung his weapon, and bolted away with jaw-dropping sonic speed. Realizing they were bait, Hoenn desperately commanded his terrified squad to chase the fleeing scam artist. But nope. A tidal wave of fangs and fur crashed into them, completely swallowing their line of sight. Just like that, the unlucky adventurers were trapped in a sea of rabid dogs. Still fighting, Hoenn roared at his comrades to fight to the bitter end. He screamed to carve a bloody path straight to the exit. The besieged squad promised each other they would make it out alive. In a flash, a massive hulking beast lunged at them, only for the fierce leader to meet it head-on. He slammed his blade into its ribs, detonating a brutal burst of magic that blew the beast into a million pieces. Hoenn roared, ordering everyone to unleash absolute hell. The doomed players fought desperately to shred their way through the endless Gnoll army. Cut back to our devious duo, chilling completely unbothered at the exit gate. They raised an eyebrow as the rivals dragged themselves in faster than expected. Dripping with rage, Hoenn swore absolute vengeance. Our hero, he couldn't care less. Just a moment ago, our guy was yawning from sheer boredom. Only 3 battered survivors had limped their way to the exit. But then they
were instantly busted by another mob of monsters. The Chinese team braced for impact against impossible odds. Their leader realized
mountain beast reinforcements were already rolling in. Still, he refused to die here. He had one goal: survive and absolutely obliterate the jerk who dragged this monster parade straight to them. Pure, unadulterated, murderous rage toward our main character burned inside
this guy's soul. Meanwhile, Baldy was out there casually throwing hands with 2 monsters at once while the squad's leading lady, Char was holding down the fort. After clearing her aggro, she turned to check on her bald buddy Chen. He gave the classic, "I'm fine."
Famous last words. A demon dog instantly ambushed him from behind, taking a massive chunk out of his neck as she watched in absolute horror. Before she could even scream payback, the team leader snatched her arm. "We're out of here. Tactical retreat," he ordered. Bawling her eyes out, she had no choice but to nod. Leaving poor Chen behind, the surviving duo hit the gas and made a desperate escape. Miraculously, they actually managed to lose the monster aggro. Catching her breath, she noticed something terrible.
The leader's arm was totally wrecked, but playing the tough guy, he brushed it off like a paper cut. When she sobbed about whether they were the only survivors, the tragic flashbacks of Baldy Chen kicked in. But the leader simply patted her shoulder, telling her to save the tears for later. Right now, his eyes were practically glowing with absolute fury. Priority number 1. Hunt down our hero and make him pay. After dragging their battered bodies all the way to the exit zone, they finally arrived, only to freeze in their tracks. Speak of the devil. There stood our protagonist, looking completely unbothered. The leader's blood boiled. Our hero casually glanced over, dropping a totally disrespectful, "Oh, you guys are early." The lady looked ready to explode. The leader vowed to slice him into sashimi, but our guy just yawned, basically telling them they were being huge drama queens. This sent the girl off the deep end, screaming that he was a literal murderer. Who got their precious Chen killed our boy just let out a heavy sigh. His eyes went completely dead as he dropped a massive reality check. Pointing out the ridiculous irony. Weren't they literally planning to sacrifice their own teammates for a rank boost just 5 minutes ago? The hypocritical leader snapped back that Chen was different because they were besties, and for that he was fully prepared to rip the protagonist to shreds. Our hero practically laughed in his face at the double standards, promising that the only blood spilling today would be theirs. The girl went full boss mode, swearing she'd deliver the most agonizing execution ever. Enter and so young. Stepping up to the plate, she admitted she felt bad for the girl earlier, but now she realized this chick was just completely delusional. Weapons drawn, the ladies instantly locked into their battle stances. The grieving girl lunged like a wild animal, swinging so blindly it almost connected. Screaming her lungs out, she was swiftly told by her opponent to shut her trap during a real fight. Watching from the sidelines, our protagonist was genuinely impressed by his partner's slick moves. She'd have definitely kicked my butt back on Earth, he thought. Meanwhile, the leader demanded to know our hero's true identity. He had only prepped for the Japanese players and the massive guilds, completely ignoring this solo menace. "Who the heck are you?" he roared. Our guy just shrugged. What's the point of exchanging business cards? He casually roasted the guy, saying a swordsman dumb enough. To walk into such an obvious trap couldn't possibly win anyway. But surprisingly, the leader smirked, ready to prove why our hero's cocky attitude was about to get him killed. And just like that, boom, goblin claws violently smashed against cold steel. Shockwaves rippled out. Both guys internally panicked, totally, caught off guard by the other's sheer raw power. The swordsman forced our hero back immediately, following up with a lethal strike that missed the protagonist's neck by actual millimeters. Recovering instantly, the two fighters launched into an absolute hurricane of high-speed blows. A completely crazy barrage of relentless attacks. Sweating, our hero quickly realized this guy wasn't just some random thug. Even half dead, he was a legit martial arts master. The leader scoffed totally, calling out our hero's cringe fighting style. "You literally copied those claws from an X-Men movie, didn't you?" Relying purely on brute stats, our hero owned the superhero roast and tried to stomp the guy into the dirt. But the veteran planted his feet like a mountain and countered. His blade sliced straight through the gaps in our hero's goblin claws. But wait, just before losing his fingers, our protagonist hit an Uno reverse, twisting his wrist to completely trap the blade. Opening created. He launched a brutal right hook straight for the jaw, but proving why he was the boss. The swordsman ducked it, Matrix style. Our hero's jaw dropped right before he caught a size 12 boot directly to the face. Stumbling back, he narrowly blocked a fatal slash with his left arm, sacrificing some health to land a nasty counterstrike with his right. The leader wasn't having it. Gripping his hilt with lethal intent, he unleashed an absolute tornado of razor-sharp slashes. And that our guy dodged by the skin of his teeth, seeing this half-dead guy pull out anime-level techniques, made our supposedly overpowered hero sweat drops. If this dude was this insane while injured in round 13, what was his peak form like? The swordsman then locked his deadly glare. The ladies were holding their own just fine, seeing that Renoir didn't need his rescuing.
Hao-Wen violently swatted our main character away, but Mu Hyuk just dug his claws in, screeching to a halt like an angry cat. The swordsman smirked, proposing a quick end to this little dance.
Why drag it out right?
Both fighters agreed to unleash their ultimate attacks. The air grew heavy as the two warriors pumped up their aura. This was the final showdown. Hao-Wen narrowed his eyes, calculating that the sneaky Korean would definitely buff his stats first. He figured our hero was a sitting duck against long-range strikes. And hey, even if Mu Hyuk dodged the flying projectiles, he would get absolutely wrecked in the close combat follow-up. Meanwhile, our underdog hero was sweating bullets, having a sudden flashback of his master's nagging voice. Doubting his own plot armor, he decided it was time to play a little dirty. He had exactly one wild card left. With zero hesitation, the two titans exploded forward for their ultimate earth-shattering clash. Both of them had nasty tricks up their sleeves. Our guy effortlessly leaped into the sky, dodging the devastating long-range blast. But the Chinese warrior totally saw that coming. Readying his throwing axe, Mu Hyuk frantically retaliated with a desperate strike, but Hao-Wen dodged it like a boss. He mocked our hero's pathetic ultimate move as their ringing blades collided once again. However, the smug smirk instantly vanished from his face. An So-young gasped in pure shock. The beautiful Renoir stood completely frozen as the rogue flying axe embedded right into her skull. She hit the dirt permanently, leaving her partner screaming internally. While Hao-Wen was busy having a mental breakdown, he glanced down to find a blade casually chilling in his own gut. Blood sprayed everywhere. He dramatically cursed our hero to burn in hell before finally dropping his weapon and kicking the bucket. Mu Hyuk just rolled his eyes sarcastically, replying that his life was already a literal hellscape. While eagerly looting the precious marks from the corpses, our whiny hero cried about his aching muscles. So-young gave him a side-eye, asking if he was seriously okay with her hoarding all the loot. He cheerfully gave her a thumbs up. He proudly declared their super sneaky ambush was a total success, entirely thanks to her flawless baiting. But his goofy smile completely faded under her serious glare. The girl silently turned back to stare at the tragic, lifeless eyes of the fallen enemy sinking deep into a gloomy existential crisis. Shaking off the heavy mood, our chaotic duo quickly hit the road, sprinting like crazy since the clock was furiously ticking. Deep down, she knew her goofy partner was just doing whatever it took to stay breathing in this twisted death game. Honestly, she had to admit his 500 IQ diversion tactics were absolutely legendary for wiping out the squad. But despite that epic victory, a totally bad vibe still haunted her. Meanwhile, a few minutes ago, while our heroes were busy tossing axes, that nasty local bully was crossing swords with a whole different crew. He sneakily reached out to crush his opponent's face, but his dirty little trick got violently swatted away in a heartbeat. The furious rival instantly dashed forward. A massive longsword violently smashed against a sleek katana, sending epic shockwaves between them. The two edgy warriors posed back-to-back with their squads. Yuchul, the bully, glanced back at his completely slaughtered minion, cursing his terrible luck for getting ambushed so easily. The vicious Japanese squad had totally jumped his two best guys without even giving them a single second to blink. And while this arrogant thug was busy patting his own back for carrying the team, one of his terrified lackeys cried out about their chances of survival. The boss man aggressively snapped, screaming at the poor guy for being totally useless. The bowl-cut brute instantly recognized the terrifying katana user as the infamous Shibata from the Musashi clan, alongside his deadly pals. The minion stared at his shaking hands in absolute terror, earning another loud scolding from his toxic leader. Yu Chol was sweating buckets, knowing perfectly well he was in incredibly hot water. Looking at how completely unbothered the Japanese team was, it was obvious they had casually wiped the floor with everyone else. Shibata, reluctantly admitting that the bully wasn't a total scrub, smirked and plotted to use his allies' dog-like sense of smell for a sneaky flank. When asked what their next big brain move was, the deadly swordsman coolly commanded them to exterminate the trash quickly while staying fully alert to avoid any stupid mistakes. But suddenly, someone aggressively yelled the Japanese captain's name. Yuchul, suddenly feeling quite chatty to save his own skin, begged to hold a diplomatic parley before shedding more blood. Shibata hilariously pointed out that his mouth was already running and told him to spit out the point. So the desperate bully puffed out his chest, bragging that taking him down would cost them dearly. The katana user just tilted his head in total confusion. Swallowing his pride, the thug awkwardly proposed a temporary truce, which made his own teammates' jaws completely drop. The Japanese squad was just incredibly baffled. Yuchul offered to pause their duel until they collectively ganged up on that overpowered Chinese team. First, surprisingly, the cold-blooded Shibata thought about the math and then flat-out rejected him anyway. The bully's face twisted into an absolutely priceless expression of shock. Shibata casually mentioned the guy's notorious reputation for backstabbing his own allies. He'd rather just kill him right now. Realizing his silver tongue had completely failed, the Korean thug angrily gripped his weapon. It was time to throw down with this absolute madman of a samurai. The Japanese side told him to zip it, but our villain wasn't listening.
He barked orders to his crew, declaring he'd personally be crushing the enemy leader. As for the rest of the Japanese team, they were mere cannon fodder for his grunts. He swore to annihilate any traitor who dared defy him. Boom! The two squads clashed like absolute madmen. Meanwhile, a beautiful butterfly pin changed hands. The girl raised an eyebrow, asking when he even looted this. Our main character just shrugged, claiming cute stuff didn't match his rugged vibe. This totally worked on his partner. She snatched the gift, a faint pink dusting her cheeks. So Young was honestly shocked to find something so pretty in this hellscape. Weak stats. Who cares? It's fashion. Meanwhile, our oblivious hero was already digging through his endless backpack. The protagonist started sorting their massive mountain of loot, trying not to cry over the items they had already accidentally trashed. He now owned a suspicious skeleton and a crusty leather belt meant for later appraisal. But his absolute holy grail was an inventory bag, a ridiculously expensive spatial pouch. Staring at it, a sudden realization hit him like a truck. The Chinese team was filthy rich, and since he boldly kill-stole their targets, he was currently sitting on a glorious stash of over 3,000 kills. Just 2,500 more, and he would dominate the scoreboard. Suddenly, our hero cracked a villainously creepy grin. His tower tokens equaled 3 million points cha-ching. But his capitalist daydream shattered when a finger poked his cheek. He thought his greedy smirk had offended her, but nope, the girl had equipped the hairpin instantly, leaving him totally speechless. An So Young shyly asked if the butterfly looked good. Staring like an awestruck fool, our hero immediately nodded. After a painfully awkward silence, smack. The classic tsundere strike. She hit him for staring. He whined about her ruining a perfectly romantic mood with her violent outbursts. The lady just face-palmed at his absolute lack of tact. Annoyed, she dramatically declared it was bedtime, claiming she was completely drained by his nonsense. Our hero just told her to rest well, entirely missing the cue. Shortly after hiding under a giant rock, the girl couldn't sleep. She fiddled with her new accessory. And as that dumb, awestruck smile of the protagonist popped into her mind, and the tsundere sighed, finding him so annoying, yet so endearing. Meanwhile, our local bully was throwing a massive tantrum. His entire squad wiped out. He had severely underestimated the Japanese team, realizing his survival was just dumb luck. And now, he was a powerless sitting duck. Completely exhausted, he desperately needed a loophole to dodge the terrifying 24-hour penalty. Swallowing his pride and his emergency meds, he opted for the coward's route. Keep quiet, crawl through the shadows, and find the exit. Still holding a petty grudge against our hero, the bully dodged monsters like a scared rabbit. He was absolutely boiling with rage over his pathetic hiding in bushes status. This humiliation fueled a toxic fire inside him to eventually murder every single contestant and claim the lone survivor crown. Meanwhile, up on the third floor, the Japanese team was taking a breather, but the staff-wielding woman was thirsty for blood. The team leader ordered everyone to chill out and recover, but the chick with the long hair wasn't having it. She demanded revenge. The leader calmly reminded them of the master plan. Camp the stairs on day 9 and mercilessly slaughter anyone walking up. However, Aoki whined that this strategy was flawed. The Chinese team would definitely crash the party, not to mention that annoying bully they failed to squash. Honestly, Aoki was throwing a massive fit. Their so-called grand plan cost them 3 allies just to escape their target's tracking range. This epic fail was exactly why he wanted immediate bloody vengeance. The leader just chuckled darkly. In a flash, he snatched his whining subordinate by the collar. "Watch your mouth, kid," he threatened. He coldly explained that wandering around like headless chickens wouldn't find their targets.
If you want justice so badly, Aoki go solo. And since the coward clearly wouldn't dare, he told him to shut his trap.
The staff user scoffed loudly, bragging that she could easily beat up their team leader. The tensions spiked, but right as the guild drama was about to turn into a full brawl, the third member leaped in to play peacemaker. He frantically reminded them that splitting up meant certain death. The tracker guy patted his angry friend's shoulder, promising to sound the alarm the second that Korean guy showed his face.
"Come on, guys, group hug, we're the strongest team here," he cheered.
With the crisis barely averted, the staff-wielding diva rolled her eyes and stomped off. She rudely ordered them to find a comfy camping spot. The leader mocked her gangster attitude. "Aren't you literally just a high school gym teacher on Earth?" He laughed. But the tracker defended her, claiming her wild Yakuza-style loyalty was a feature, not a bug. Shaking his head, the team leader agreed on one thing. He wanted that Korean guy super dead too. Meanwhile, time ticked by. Our supposed Korean prey was playing the ultimate stealth game. His sad routine: find an exit camp for the reset rinse, and repeat. It was boring but effective. Even though the Japanese hunters found minor clues, he slipped through their fingers like a greased pig. Without a magical radar, hunting him was impossible.
The sheer frustration was driving everyone absolutely bananas. Finally, the sun set on another chaotic day. Back with our main duo, they hit the jackpot. The stairs were completely empty. An, so young, crossed her arms fiercely, complaining that she totally wanted to raid another floor before the reset timer went off if it wasn't for a lizard lover. But hey, zero regrets. Every single stat leveled up except for magic. This left him totally smug, yet weirdly bummed they only had 2 days left in this EXP mine. But suddenly, as day 9 kicked off, the ground violently shook. A massive trapdoor swallowed our hero whole. Falling through the abyss, the protagonist cursed the sneaky enforcer. Another hidden rule, seriously. Meanwhile, deep down in the pitch-black abyss, Carol was just vibing to his playlist. But then he totally realized that his epic prank was wrapping up. The forced hunt was almost over, so he casually checked the live count of surviving players. The enforcer blinked. Way fewer survivors than expected. Those teams definitely went total battle royale and wrecked each other. Checking their loot, he noticed the Japanese leader stacked 10 watches, while our guy bagged 11. They literally looted their own squads blind. The demon smirked, genuinely impressed by our main character's hustle. Getting more loot than his actual bully classic, so the demon decided to spice things up. Time to crank the death toll and make them slaughter each other until absolutely nothing remained. He belted out a totally supervillain laugh. Meanwhile, back to our falling duo. They were absolutely baffled that despite the nasty splat, that totally lethal drop barely scratched their HP. As our hero loudly complained about getting teleported back to floor 1, the girl was fuming. Day 10 isn't even here yet. And just as he cursed the troll enforcer's grand design, guess who strolls up? The absolute worst guy, the bully. The Korean players stared totally stunned. A very confused Bae Yo grinned, calling the MC his lucky charm. But our hero fired back, "Yeah, feeling is definitely not mutual, pal." Right then, a heavy metal staff slammed the floor. The furious wielder had entered the chat. Aoki glared daggers at the literal murderer, instantly gearing up to avenge her fallen squad. But her 2 pals frantically held her back. Watching this spicy drama unfold, our guy connected the dots. Major beef confirmed between the bully and the Japanese squad. They finally realized that getting dumped back to floor 1 was 100% the enforcer's doing. While the Japanese leader didn't even try to chill his angry subordinate, the bully figured out why she was fuming. "Your friends attacked me first," he whined, claiming he was the real victim here since his whole squad got wiped. Aoki angrily demanded why she was still being restrained. Her leader basically told her to read the room. Those 2 weirdos over there might be teaming with the bully, or worse, the missing Chinese squad. Fighting now was super risky, so the big brain play was to stand down and wait until they actually scanned the duo's power levels. Shibata smoothly promised that she would absolutely get her revenge later. The dense bully still didn't understand the heavy mood. Seeing the Japanese team stand down, our hero quickly whispered his master plan to his partner. The girl, totally hating the vibe here, sighed and admitted it was their only shot. Flashing the most suspicious, innocent smile ever, our MC decided to pitch his genius idea, making everyone raise an eyebrow. Bae scoffed, "Nobody asked for your opinion. Loser." But the MC completely ignored him and dropped the bomb. "Let's all team up." Before the bully could yell that this was total garbage, the Japanese leader suddenly cut him off. "Keep talking," he demanded, pointing out the massive beef with Bae Yu-chu. "We are literal enemies." Aoki tried to rage quit the chat, screaming that she would never ally with a party killer, but one icy death stare from Shibata shut that down fast. He ordered her to zip it. Reluctantly, the fierce girl kept her mouth shut. "Can I continue?" our hero asked. Shibata nodded. The MC, noting this floor 1 reset was pure demon trolling, pointed at their tragic head counts. "Look around. We are literally the last players standing." The Japanese leader sighed, confirming they had been wiped down to 3, and the biggest squad was now a solo act. This totally triggered the bully, who desperately wanted to start the final boss fight with the Japanese right here. But our MC dropped a reality check. The Chinese squad still has 7 players alive. I literally just saw them on floor 2, full HP, no one missing. They have to be lurking somewhere else on this floor. Our big-brained hero grinned. The demon specifically dragged us down here so the tiny squads would wipe each other out. If we start a deathmatch right now, surviving against a full team is going to be basically impossible. Bae crossed his arms, totally doubting the math. Our hero shrugged. "I have 0 proof, honestly. But a sketchy team-up beats a guaranteed game over." Mu Hyuk agreed it was smarter to stack allies, especially since that sadist demon definitely had more cursed surprises waiting. This left the big bad bully aggressively buffering, while the Japanese team cut to the Japanese team leader, who shockingly agreed to an alliance, leaving his lackeys totally dumbfounded. They desperately tried to warn him that teaming up with the local bully Bia Yoshul was a horribly toxic idea, but the boss claimed it was a necessary evil to boost their numbers. Shibata smoothly added that the meatheads' threats were completely empty anyway, and that they desperately needed cannon fodder to deal with the elusive Chinese squad. He then turned to the brute, acting totally nonchalant, saying he wouldn't beg for a team-up, but heavily hinted it was the only way he'd survive. Bia Yoshul grunted that he understood the assignment perfectly, but before officially swallowing his pride to accept the deal, he made it aggressively clear this was just a temporary truce. He basically said, "I trust zero of you nerds," and promised to shatter the alliance the second they outlive their usefulness. Shibata casually agreed to these chaotic terms. But this incredibly unstable party formed, the female lead couldn't help but fangirl over her partner's genius brain, somehow manipulating bitter enemies into holding hands. But here comes the hilariously messy part. This fake friendship alliance was basically a ticking time bomb built on a mountain of lies. Once the glitter faded, only the ultimate backstabbers would take the crown. Shibata then pointed a finger of doom, declaring that the bully would be their glorious meat shield at the front. The brute's veins popped, growling that two things made him violently angry. First, taking orders from nerds, and second, being treated like a human shield, but Shibata smoothly buttered him up, claiming it was only because of his overwhelming muscles. Yet the thug was sweating bullets at the thought of leaving his back exposed to a fiercely vengeful lady. Her leader quickly promised that she would definitely not stab him in the back. Shibata then smugly stated that since he brought the most bodies to this party, he was obviously the one wearing the boss pants. Just to rub it in, he called for a hilariously petty democratic vote on whether Bei Yoshul should march straight into danger. Boom, 5 hands shot up instantly. Democracy wins. The bully was furiously glaring daggers at our protagonist, who had happily raised his hand with zero hesitation. Simmering with pure rage, he mentally added our hero to his murder list before desperately shouting that they had to take turns dying at the front. He then glared at the warrior, who just blinked back, totally baffled by the sudden death stare. Meanwhile, In So Young hated the bully's guts so much, she was literally praying to the heavens for a monster to eat him. The Japanese team leader then politely asked our heroes to watch their backs, which they happily accepted. Mu Hyuk felt a tiny bit insulted that Shibata actually trusted them not to backstab him. But his own teammates were just marveling at how absolutely stress-free our hero looked. Flashback to when he first pitched this circus of an alliance, she was totally flabbergasted. He smoothly explained that this was way better than a bloody free-for-all. Our incredibly sly hero explained they were basically using the Chinese team as a convenient boogeyman to keep this dumpster fire of a team intact. Even so, the lady was super skeptical. That is until she saw him flash an angelic, totally innocent smile, while casually dropping his master plan to completely betray every single one of them at the finish line. Still walking in the present, the girls heavily doubted this chaotic roadmap. Aoki whispered to her boss, asking if he actually had a backup plan. The former gym teacher confessed she fundamentally distrusted the sneaky duo in the back and the angry meathead in the front. Shibata just shushed her, telling her to keep it quiet to avoid poking the bear. He then cracked an insanely villainous smile, whispering that his own backstabbing scheme was going perfectly. Back at the front, the bully was still throwing a massive mental tantrum about being trapped in this nerd squad. He was mildly suspicious of the shady redhead, who definitely knew too much, but his tiny brain decided to just drop it. Basically, every single person in this party was aggressively waiting for the perfect second to pull off the ultimate betrayal. After 4 mind-numbing hours of walking, they actually found the stairs. Our hero realized they had speed-run the floor way faster than expected, while Shibata casually explained that only weak, basic dwarves lived on this level. But out of nowhere, the warrior yelled, "Peace out, losers," and went sprinting like a madman toward the stairs, completely ditching his so-called allies and leaving everyone utterly speechless. And So Young just face-palmed, loudly declaring how astronomically stupid that was. Why would the legendary Black Dragons back such a clown? The hero figured this meathead had some secret talent. Moving on, the staff-wielding mage chimed in. She was absolutely floored these two hadn't died yet. The snarky spellcaster made it clear she wasn't about to let her favorite test subjects vanish. The Japanese leader smoothly noted that the loudmouth brute was totally useless on his own. Time to hit the next level up on floor 2. The muscle brain sat there behaving like a perfectly trained puppy. Theory confirmed, the meathead immediately started whining, completely baffled by the sudden dungeon layout shifts. The mage just rolled her eyes, explaining they knew about this gimmick since floor 1. She added that warping everyone back down was the only logical reason for the map scramble. Then she totally called out the giant baby for planning a pathetic sneak attack. The brute threw a massive tantrum at the enforcer, but the calm Japanese leader simply told him to chill out. They still had to find 4 stairways in under 20 hours. The raging bully barked at the leader, threatening bloody murder. Shibata just smiled, completely unbothered. Meanwhile, our duo realized the clock was loudly ticking. They couldn't afford a messy brawl right now, needing that final staircase themselves. The smiling swordsman urged our hero forward. The brute swallowed his rage, eagerly daydreaming about the perfect moment to slaughter this annoying group. But Shibata's lackeys whispered a harsh truth.
Their boss should watch his back around the quiet hero, not the loud brute. They felt like pathetic chess pieces in the main character's game. Shibata praised their sharp instincts, but told them to relax. They were easily the heavy hitters of this temporary alliance, which was only going to last until floor 5 anyway. He confidently smirked, knowing they could easily backstab and crush these losers when the time was right. Soon after, the brute, absolutely disgusted by the rotting zombies, spammed his skills to blast them away. Tossing massive explosions everywhere, he forced the Japanese team to admit he was great at clearing out the trash. Shibata chuckled, noting this explosive power was exactly why the Black Dragons kept him around. Meanwhile, our duo thought his flashy moves were utterly stupid, secretly praying a zombie would bite him. Boom, exit found. Shibata gave a sarcastic slow clap. They hit the stairs in 3 hours. The brute threw a tantrum, screaming that he literally hard-carried this entire squad. Our hero quickly popped his bubble. Nope, they had all been busy happily farming shiny tokens off those zombie corpses. This only made the brute's blood boil hotter over wasted time. The mage smoothly reminded the fuming idiot that the drops were shared perfectly. Our clever protagonist realized the map was shrinking, meaning he could finally hunt his absolute favorite prey on the 3rd floor. Flashing a greedy grin, he casually offered to take the vanguard position with his partner. The musclehead immediately barked out a laugh, calling them crazy weaklings, who would definitely get crushed by the vicious lizard soldiers. The smug hunter simply smirked, telling the big baby to just watch. The hero shrugged. He just wanted that sweet token money. Of course, the entire squad rolled their eyes, doubting these two could survive a paper cut. Left with 0 options, our duo charged headfirst into the mob. The team braced for a hilarious double suicide. And So Young sighed, asking if they really had to flex this hard. The hero winked, telling her to dial it back a notch. And just like that, the dynamic duo turned into a meat grinder, absolutely shredding those scaly soldiers. The brute's jaw dropped to the floor, while the Japanese quietly panicked. With a brutal final swing, the hero's axe painted the walls red. The doubters were officially silenced by this insane damage output. And while Shibata nervously let them lead, the brute stood completely paralyzed by this monstrous power flex. Then, as the main character casually popped a monster core into his mouth, the squad gagged. He just smiled. Snack break, anyone? The classy swordsman almost threw up, watching this guy eat raw monster hearts. His partner furiously whispered that he needed to hide this gross power-up diet, but our crazy hero just chuckled. Making them think he was utterly psychotic was totally the plan. Acting like an unpredictable lunatic kept their enemies off balance, setting the perfect stage for some brilliant backstabbing later. He then happily tossed a chunk of bloody lizard meat at the horrified swordsman. A minion squeaked that maybe he had a weird gluttony skill, but the boss shook his head. No rookie could get that. They should just ignore the crazy eater. Right on cue, the mage scolded the main character for turning his back on the ticking time bomb brute. Our hero just scoffed, calling that meathead completely harmless right now. Yawning, the protagonist dusted off his hands, ready to clear the floor. Shibata narrowed his eyes, deeply fascinated by this maniac. In the shadows, the humiliated bully swore to survive this nightmare squad. The mage happily announced a 4-hour clear time, but the grumpy Japanese boss complained that the gross snack break ruined their speedrun. Our hero just rubbed his belly, whining that he was starving. Our guy was absolutely starving. But plot twist, those monster cores were literal garbage to him now. With all his stats maxed out at rank 6, he needed matching cores for an upgrade. Those rank 7 lizard drops, basically worthless pocket lint. But hey, the surviving players were still kicking, so our devious main character decided to drag them right down to his level. He cooked up a delightfully toxic plan to play massive mind games, bait them into fighting, and wipe the floor with everyone. All to claim that shiny #1 spot. His poor partner just sweated bullets as he flashed another supervillain grin. Arriving on floor 4, Shibata called a quick strategy meeting. The sketchy tower enforcer had hinted that the final boss monsters would only spawn on the absolute last day. Since time was ticking, Shibata suggested they split up and scout the area while keeping one eye peeled for that suspiciously missing Chinese team. Without wasting a breath, everyone started the Great Staircase scavenger hunt. Our iconic duo stuck together alongside the Japanese squad, while the resident bully wandered off totally solo. 7 agonizing hours of walking simulator later, still no stairs. Naturally, the squad started questioning their life choices. Shibata turned to E2, desperately asking if they missed a spot, but the scout shook his head, confirming they had practically scrubbed the whole map. Turns out this guy did not have a fancy mapping system. He just possessed the nose of a literal bloodhound. Surprised our hero asked if he could sniff out other players too. One confident nod later, our main character relaxed while the bully secretly started connecting the dots. Reading the room. Shibata finally called for a well-deserved timeout. Grinding mobs right now would be absolute torture. He suggested a classic 2-man watch rotation, volunteering himself and our hero for shift #1. A girl tried to argue that sleeping was for the weak, but Shibata doubled down. His human radar had an immaculate nose, so camping out was their best bet. While she kept glaring, the exhausted bully aggressively yelled at her to sit down and follow basic instructions. Yoki instantly fired back at his total lack of manners, telling him to wash his mouth with soap. Shockingly, Bei Yuchul actually zipped his lips. This totally annoyed the staff user, who suddenly found himself forced into a guard shift with the grumpy bully, leaving Aoki and the fierce An So-young to pair up. But when Aoki demanded to know the logic behind these weird teams, her buddy just shushed her. Yuchul smirked, realizing this was a brilliant tactic to make the Japanese squad babysit their enemies. His brain gears finally turned as he recognized the fierce girl's name. Ding the bully remembered her as a legendary Six-Pool guild member, and practically besties with the notorious Kim Jong-un. The tiny guy gasped, realizing she was tied to that monstrous family branch manager. Yuchul happily spilled the tea, gossiping about a famous player who almost got his jewels chopped off for messing with An So-young. As he kept blabbering away, swoosh, a deadly blade aimed right for his neck, only to dramatically clash against cold steel, sweating buckets. The bully realized he almost caught a one-way ticket to the afterlife, nervously claiming it was just a fun story. An So-young told him to shut his trap, her eyes swirling with pure, murderous intent. She threatened to slice his throat wide open, but the absolute madman just joked that a girl attacking him was a nice break from this total sausage fest. I tried to break up the fight but was instantly blocked. The lady figured these Koreans were enemies too happily volunteering to help assassinate the bully. But the shorter guy panicked, swearing it was a giant trap. He immediately flashed back to a super intense strategy chat with the squad boss, wondering if that guy Hoenn was actually still alive. The scout argued it was basically impossible since they had not spotted a single trace of him. Shibata smirked, betting our heroes had already sent him to the respawn screen. This plot twist meant they totally wiped out the Chinese team. The leader nodded, claiming this was exactly why the heroes were acting so chill, suspecting they might actually be allied with the bully. So the big-brain swordsman decided to poke the protagonists, testing if the Koreans were a united front or just faking it. He firmly ordered his scout to keep their hot-headed teammate on a tight leash. Idu thought everyone was being super dramatic, but grabbed his popcorn anyway to watch the spicy showdown between the two angry Koreans. Seeing the chaos, our hero stepped in, only to have a razor-sharp blade pressed right against his own throat. Shibata blocked the path with zero hesitation. Eyes blazing with anger, our hero demanded he move aside while the Japanese leader just smiled and told him to chill out. The protagonist gave one final warning to back off, but Shibata stood firm like a concrete wall. It suddenly clicked. The swordsman clearly knew how this fight would end. The main character dropped his voice to a scary whisper, vowing that the second that girl was in real danger, he would snap the swordsman like a twig. Surprisingly, Shibata happily agreed to those terms. Meanwhile, in the middle of their epic blade clash, the bully practically pointed at the audience, reminding the girl that everyone was watching. She just scoffed, saying they all wanted his head anyway. Panicking, he aggressively whisper-screamed, begging her to use her brain, plotting exactly who bites the dust next. One sneaky little whisper later, and she looked ready to flip a table. Bei Yuchul effortlessly swatted his rival away. Honestly, he was secretly fanboying over their ridiculous power levels, but decided fighting was just too much cardio for today. He literally blinked, ready for a mid-battle nap, while casually spilling the tea about an upcoming ambush. She rolled her eyes so hard they almost got stuck, hearing his grand pitch. 3 against 3. A totally flawless, not at all suspicious temporary alliance. Yuchul confidently declared he would happily throw the first punch, leaving her the chore of dragging her teammate into this mess. He smirked, explaining that after they wiped out the predictably backstabbing Japanese squad, it would just be the two of them. Easy math, right? He cheerfully admitted this shaky friendship would spectacularly implode in a few hours anyway. Meanwhile, An So-young crossed her fingers, praying this messy plan wouldn't crash and burn. Nearby, the smug rival leader patted our boy's shoulder, promising everything was fine. He teasingly poked fun at our hero at acting like a total clingy bodyguard. Blushing furiously, our protagonist loudly denied it, rambling about tactical unity while desperately avoiding eye contact. The Chinese team. But Shibata just flashed a supervillain grin. He totally called the kid's bluff about Hoenn and his crew still breathing. A cold sweat dripped down our boy's back. Busted. Our hero tried playing dumb, swearing the Chinese were still out there, but Shibata just sighed, asking him to cut the crap. The guy literally read our hero's entire failed playbook out loud, proving that these Japanese players were annoyingly sharp. He even called out the epic death glare our hero gave the bully. Clearly, they were bitter rivals. Our main character tried to deny it, arguing that this wasn't some cliché comic book. But Shibata flexed his true Yakuza logic. Real killers recognize other killers, and he wanted to team up with fellow psychos. Our boy was speechless. So the Yakuza boss made a spicy offer. The Axe Bro and his partner joined forces to jump their common enemy. A classic back-alley sneak attack. Mu Hyuk knew they were just bait for the bully, so he asked the million-dollar question. And if we say no? Shabat smirked. Refusal wasn't exactly on the menu. If they passed, his goons would happily smash the partner, while he personally flattened our hero. Talk about a rock in a hard place. The choice was simple. Hide behind the Yakuza, or die with the bully. Meanwhile, Baeyuk was having major insomnia. He realized his luck was running out fast. He noticed the Chinese squad was totally ghosted and instantly suspected the Japanese. Clinging to his secret trump card, he knew the Japanese leader would backstab him in a heartbeat. Soon enough, the awkward guard shift for our hero and the Yakuza ended. Shabat excused himself to go plot with his minions, leaving our dynamic duo to their own private panic room. Later, the two swapped stories about how both factions totally tried to recruit them. Mu Hyuk explained that the Japanese side already figured out the Chinese got wiped by some crazy skill. His partner didn't even blink. In fact, she had the exact same big brain idea as him. Our hero bragged that he knew the two enemy camps would totally rip each other apart. But to hijack this mess, they needed a one-shot kill move like the warrior's thrust. With zero hesitation, our main character declared his absolute faith in her awesome power. Our resident tsundere completely panicked, begging him to let her go. Seeing her face turn tomato red, our hero worried, but she yelled to ignore it. Surprisingly, she then apologized for snapping at the bully earlier, promising to behave. But plot twist, our hero didn't scold her at all. He admitted he felt the exact same way. And just like that, their little strategy chat wrapped up. She was left totally baffled as he walked off looking cool. Our guy, sweating bullets inside, decided he had to rely on his own grit. His fancy skill was completely useless with 0 stat points anyway. So he put all his trust in some rusty nails from his best buddy, the goblin. Everyone knew the ultimate boss fight was going down during the final watch shift. Trapped in a narrow hallway with the most hated guy alive, the bully just grinned like a cartoon villain thinking he held all the cards. Soon after, during the ladies' watch, the marauder checked the clock. 1 hour and 30 minutes deep. She finally cornered our hero to ask about his hilariously reckless move, saving that corpse from the zombies earlier. He smoothly lied, claiming he only did it for the shiny loot watches. He instantly chewed him out for completely missing the point. Mu Hyuk then confessed his 3 big brain motives. First, the bully would have definitely survived the zombies anyway, so faking his death was pointless. Second, it is way easier to just rob him later. But the third reason? That was the embarrassing truth. He wanted to personally crush this bully who triggered his worst childhood trauma. With his own 2 hands, our main character knew the only way to move forward was to literally bury the ghost of his past. Honestly, he used to not care about dying. Now he was addicted to leveling up. He apologized for dragging his partner into this mess. Cut to the present, the lady gripped her weapon, praying for a miracle. She locked eyes with the staff user, knowing she absolutely needed a one-shot critical hit. For this chaotic plan to pop off, everyone had to play their part. The ambush would drop the exact second the bully stepped into the kill zone. The Japanese leader was already plotting to backstab the most hated player on the board. And while the bully was desperately locking onto a single Japanese target, the phase 1 of this absolute genius plan, fake a team-up with the bullies. This meant our icy queen had to score a kill. No rookie could dodge her thrust anyway. Meanwhile, the Yakuza wannabe sent his partner on a hit mission against the bully. Perfect 0 witnesses for our main character's sneaky ambush. The grand finale was supposed to be a 3-way brawl. Even the worst scumbags might team up. Knowing this on so young, new drawing first blood was absolutely vital. Step 2, hog the exit like a total coward, just in case. Suddenly, the sleeping bully snorted awake. Is it morning already? Mu Hyuk deadpanned. It is high noon, idiot. Baeyul. I chuckled, claiming our hero was mildly amusing. Honestly, his only good trait, with that touching compliment. And the lazy bully dragged his feet to work. Clang. The Yakuza smashed his weapon down, flexing hard. Our hero. Mirrored the flex, gripping his trusty axe. Baeyul tried, chatting up I2, who brutally ignored him. Meanwhile, the girls realized the creepy guy was creeping closer. Baeho suddenly blurted out how greedy he was for the loot. Talk about triggering instant rage. Bro, I am just making small talk, he sweat dropped, but the vibe was already ruined. Going full edgelord, he vowed to show off his shiny new skills from his last 4 runs, and action. So Young lunged at AI. But surprise, the target was actually ready. Our main character sweated. Sensing major bad vibes, Xing the Yakuza drew his blade, the staff user acting like a total know-it-all. Tried to mansplain their own ambush to them. Still, our hero totally trusted his fierce partner. She left. The staff wielder utterly baffled by dodging her sneaky strike. Too predictable, newbie, the marauder smirked. Our boy,
Knew his partner was an absolute beast, thrust right through the heart, and just like that, Aoki hit the dirt. Thanks to So Young, the Yakuza's jaw dropped to the floor, completely terrified. Seeing this juicy distraction, the bully decided to strike the poor kid. Whoosh, he yeeted his axe, already bracing for absolute disaster.
But seriously, who wouldn't panic? A terrifying chill crawled up their spines. The axe spun wildly straight toward Baeyul. Rip, the Ice Queen, yanked her blade from her fresh kill. Suddenly, a blinding tomato-red flash exploded. Inside the dark tunnel, Mu Hyuk groaned internally. So much for keeping his partner safe. He could smell.
Major tragedy approaching. So Young always played the lone wolf. Trust no one, punch everyone. That was her childhood motto. Thanks to a rather cynical upbringing by her mom. After losing, her dad, Mommy Dearest, dropped some brutal truth bombs. The world is trash, sweetie. She basically taught her, everyone is evil, so carry a big stick and trust yourself. Honestly, Mom of the Year material. Yet somehow, the girl made her proud anyway. Winning became as easy as breathing. In her mind, she was an untouchable god. But being an overpowered lone wolf meant zero friends. Seriously, the concept of friendship was alien to her. She kept things professional but strictly solo. This frozen, cruel world loved keeping her totally isolated. Plus the whole mass disappearance of people back on Earth did not help her trust issues. To her, the real world was exactly like this fantasy nightmare, win or literally die trying. Eventually, she blindly stumbled into the Six Pool Guild. A tiny spark of hope. Did she finally find decent gaming buddies? The poor girl thought this mega guild would be her safe haven. She even dreamed of climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize they were just backstabbing snakes. Now for the first time ever, the untouchable So Young was sweating bullets. The scary truth hit her. She could not solo this boss fight. The embarrassment of needing a carry stung her pride. She thought asking for backup was a total sin, so she kept running like a headless chicken, believing that being a lone edgelord was the only strategy. But bam. Character development hit her, that obnoxiously bright. Red flash completely flashbanged her, and our hero got caught in the crossfire. Ah? My eyes. A flash grenade skill. An ultra-rare cheap trick. A free 10-second stun against anyone on the same level, seriously. How did a low-tier bully score this overpowered item? While everyone panicked, Baeyul casually snatched the flying axe, but the stun effect locked him in place like a glitching video game character. He mashed all the buttons, trying to break free. Sweating in total confusion / a creepy Joker-level grin flashed before his head literally rolled off. With I-2 and deleted from the server, Baeyul charged the stunned Ice Queen. His utterly psychotic face gave her major flashbacks. From her horrible old boss, talk about a nightmare. She mentally pressed the game over button, regretting playing strictly solo. But wait, cue the main character music. Our boy drop-kicked the bully right in the spine of his head. Fury blazed in his eyes like a wildfire. He grabbed the brute and planted his ugly face straight into the dirt. The sheer murder in his gaze left his partner absolutely speechless. Meanwhile, the remaining Yakuza goons were completely mind-blown seeing our guy move before the stun debuff even wore off. Mu Hyuk glared at the bully Baeyugo. He practically threatened to skewer the guy right there. But wait. He suddenly realized this meathead was charging up a massive knockback skill. Without hesitating, our hero scooped up his partner and leaped out of the danger zone like a total boss. He quickly gave her a once-over, and thankfully, she was totally fine. Baeyugo, who was groaning like a kicked puppy, demanded to know one thing. How on earth did our hero dodge his supposedly unblockable flash grenade? That cheap trick was meant to be flawless, but our hero wasn't taking interviews today. He demanded answers of his own first before just saying screw it and unsheathing his wickedly sharp claws. Talk time was officially over. Mu Hyuk was ready to send the bully packing once and for all, but the bully, clearly lacking survival instincts, was still obsessing over the grenade. He actually mocked our guy, laughing at him for cosplaying a certain clawed mutant from the movies. Then this absolute clown turned to the Yakuza, throwing a tantrum and screaming that he couldn't stand them either. He threatened to kill the mobsters first if they dared to step any closer. Shibata, completely unimpressed, dared the bully to back up that big talk considering they were all stuck in this mess. Baeyugo just sneered back, roasting the Yakuza boss despite having just lost his entire squad. He puffed up his chest, declaring that cheap parlor tricks wouldn't save anyone now. Actually, this psychopath claimed he felt way more at home now that it was just raw violence on the menu. With a crazy grin, Baeyugo officially rang the bell for this deathmatch. With the ultimate battle royale kicking off, our heroes readied their weapons. The air practically crackled as the bully charged up his heavy-hitting skills, while the Yakuza boss poured all his murderous aura into his katana. The tension was thick enough to cut, but our heroes were the first to blast right out of the gates. The protagonist launched himself straight at the nightmare from his past. Meanwhile, his fierce lady companion found herself in a seriously spicy predicament. She was going toe-to-toe with the big bad Yakuza boss solo. But just a split second after their weapons violently clashed, she flawlessly dodged. She instantly unleashed a flurry of strikes with such insane speed and surgical precision that it completely scrambled the mobster's brain. Realizing he was actually losing ground to her, the Yakuza boss got salty and instantly triggered his own flashy skills. He desperately tried to blast her back while she casually roasted him for being all bark and no bite. Burning with embarrassment over getting totally styled on, he furiously gripped his sword. The two locked eyes, resetting their combat stances. Meanwhile, back in the main event, as the meathead bully traded blows with our former underdog, Yugo was utterly shocked by our hero's insane power output. He once again demanded to know how he dodged that blinding grenade, but our guy just gave him the silent treatment. This finally made the dense bully realize that our hero was absolutely pissed off because his girl was caught in the crossfire. Cue the romantic drama. The bully snickered, mocking our hero for not only getting suspiciously ripped, but also magically leveling up his riz with the ladies. After dropping that absolute garbage trash talk, the brute finally fired up his signature skill and bulldozed toward our hero. But he hit nothing but air. Oh, it was officially payback o'clock. As the bulky meathead suddenly found himself getting absolutely comboed into next week, reality smacked him in the face. This kid wasn't a joke anymore. And so sparking his one remaining brain cell, the bully channeled a massive wave of magic into his gigantic blade. Alarm bells rang in our hero's head as the brute brought down an earth-shattering overhead smash. Our protagonist gritted his teeth, barely blocking the monstrous strike. Yugo barked a laugh, claiming that our boy was exactly like his other pathetic lackeys, getting a big head the second they tasted a tiny drop of power. Without warning, he delivered a dirty kick right into the hero's gut, sending him skidding back. The two titans clashed violently once more as the overgrown gorilla promised to beat some respect into him old-school style. He rained down a barrage of savage strikes, screaming at our protagonist to spit it out. He still wanted to know how his precious skill got totally ruined. Deciding he had humored the clown enough, our hero finally dropped the bombshell as he effortlessly parried the massive blade away. Mu Hyuk looked him dead in the eye and stated the cold, hard truth. It was simply a massive gap in their ranks. He was completely immune to the flashbang because... Drumroll, please. Our boy was now a majestic rank 6. The bully's jaw practically unhinged. He absolutely refused to accept that reality. But at the same time, a cold, terrifying shiver crawled down his spine. His body instinctively knew that a single scratch from those claws would be an instant game over, and right on cue, slash. Our hero tore through his defenses, drawing first blood. The bully stared at his wound in utter disbelief. How did he pierce through his ultimate defense buffs? Sweating bullets, the brute forced himself to focus. One more mistake here, and he was getting a one-way ticket to the afterlife. So he decided it was time to whip out his nasty little trump card, an ultra-rare exclusive skill designed to brutally seal away an enemy's hard-earned stat points. With an arrogant sneer, he aimed to lock out our hero's power completely. The meathead gloated that all those fancy rank-ups meant absolutely nothing now. He was about to steal the show. Yeah, right. Just as the shadowy skill slammed into its target, poof, it vanished like a cheap magic trick. The bully rubbed his eyes, totally flabbergasted. Mu Hyuk coldly explained he saw this coming from a mile away before plunging his blade straight into the brute's chest, and while the guy was choking on his own confusion, he delivered the ultimate punchline. His stats literally had 0 points left to steal. They were totally maxed out, leaving the bully to process his own stupidity. The camera pans back to the epic showdown between the Yakuza thug channeled some serious aura into his blade. He unleashed a massive strike. His target dodged it perfectly. Seeing her crazy reflexes, the mobster guessed she dumped all her points into the agility stat. Our girl teased him for packing enough punch to one-shot, her jokingly complaining that it was totally unfair for a newbie. The guy bragged about his fancy sponsor acting like an absolute big shot, claiming his sword mastery was top tier. She quickly figured out it was an active attack skill. In response, her opponent smirked like a comic book villain and spawned a literal clone. The Yakuza was dead set that she couldn't dodge this double trouble. As both copies rushed her at once, our heroine realized she was in a seriously sticky situation. She sidestepped the first blade only to get slashed by the second. The mobster grinned ear to ear after nicking her shoulder. He proudly announced his special assassin art, a perfect counter against annoying agility-type players. Speed is great, but it is not a god mode. The thug boldly declared he was going to wipe her out and then her partner just to claim the top rank. So Young glanced back and saw her teammate fighting with absolute main character energy.
Gritting her teeth, she told the mobster to stop dreaming. Landing one lucky hit didn't make him the boss, especially when she had a sacred promise to keep. This sudden burst of shonen protagonist energy threw the guy off. He could only clap for her stubbornness. So Young challenged him to bet it all on the very next strike, since they were on a tight schedule. The villain cockily agreed, promising to show off his ultimate sword technique. With the trash talk over, both fighters readied their final stances. And when the tension peaked, the criminal dashed forward using that exact same clone trick. But just as he started celebrating his win, the girl flashed a savage smile and moved at absolute light speed, leaving only a decoy afterimage behind. Both clones were totally bamboozled. They assumed she popped a stealth skill to vanish. The mobster was completely fooled by her wildcard move. He was sweating bullets since his clone skill hit its cooldown. Suddenly, she dropped from right above him, sassily declaring that she never even tried to hide, and mentally reviewed the system rules. In this crazy world, proficiency points are everything. Grinding stats is life. Mid-air, she realized her top priority right now was leveling up her penetration skill to spam it twice in a row. The thug finally looked up and saw her falling right out of the sky. He panicked and tried to block, but it was game over. Blood sprayed everywhere. The guy tried to complain her move was flawed, but honestly, he was the dead body and she was the one still breathing. Suddenly, she remembered her teammate and rushed to play backup, but her jaw dropped. His boss fight was already cleared. Catching her stare, our hero flashed an insanely warm smile and gave her a thumbs up for surviving. The stunned girl actually burst into happy tears. The crushing fear of being totally alone in this mess vanished. She had finally found a literal angel in this tutorial hell. A rare, ultra-special teammate, unlike anyone she had ever partied up with. But wait! The defeated bully's magic rings started glowing. Meanwhile, So Young was too busy enjoying her first taste of true happiness. The two winners ran toward each other. She was just amazed to see such a golden retriever smile in the middle of a death game. It almost made her believe she was allowed to have a happy ending. But right behind that blinding smile, she saw a total nightmare. The glowing rings fully activated, teleporting the deadbeat bully. She realized the precious smile she was just admiring was about to get absolutely wrecked by a sore loser. Seeing the thug spawn behind him, she knew yelling a warning was useless. So she took the only crazy option left. Channeling her inner tank, she gripped her sword and launched herself like a missile. The hero was completely lost. Why was his partner suddenly charging at him with a weapon? At first, he couldn't process the friendly fire. But as she blew right past him, he whipped around. Our hero couldn't believe his own eyes. The sudden splash of blood froze him in pure horror. The bully and So Young had mutually impaled each other. The thug was super confused about how she caught him, but our girl mocked him, saying his trash mob aura was way too obvious to ignore. This completely tilted the loser. He went for a cheap final swing, only to get claws shoved straight through his face by our enraged protagonist. The bully was finally and permanently logged out. But tragically, the ultimate wingwoman was also collapsing. Her partner rushed to catch her falling body. Seeing her health dropping fast, Mu Hyuk desperately tried to spam all his healing potions, but she gently stopped his hand. She told him with a tired smile that it was game over for her anyway. And since her character was getting deleted, she just asked him to stay logged in with her for just a little bit longer. Our hero bawled his eyes out. He learned the hard way that forgetting to double tap your enemies always backfires. Who expects a beaten bully to just respawn? Suming coughed up blood, telling him it was totally fine since she owed him a solid anyway. But our weeping protagonist insisted there were no I owe us in saving lives. The dying girl just rolled her eyes, clarifying that basic human decency was not exactly a superpower. Chamui looked completely lost, so she confessed that being a total loner made making friends incredibly hard. Plopped into this crazy survival game, she was forced to go solo, thus taking a lethal hit for him. Zero regrets. So Young then pulled our dense hero in for a dramatic final smooch. She reminded him of her stubborn vow to always play the noble paladin. But since she was currently failing at the not dying part, she tagged him in to carry her heroic baggage. With that massive burden passed on, she flashed one last smile and logged out of life. Cue the endless tears. Suddenly teleported to a dark abyss. The system enforcer was casually sipping tea. The demon greeted the traumatized winner with the most punchable, smug grin. Our hero just stared back, his eyes screaming dead inside. The demon Captain Obvious noted that the survivor looked like absolute garbage, offering him a seat. He bragged about how this bloodbath was the best reality TV he had seen in centuries. That is right, this creepy admin had been binge-watching their suffering, and totally ship-reacted to the tragic kiss. The demon proudly admitted that he fast-forwarded through the boring filler straight to day 8. That crossed the line. Our hero lunged, shoving his sharp claws right in the admin's smug face. The demon kept smiling, but his eyes screamed murder. Chamui snapped, telling the VIP viewer to shut it. Unfazed, the demon mockingly asked if he looted any dead players' watches, specifically his dead girlfriend's. Silence. The enforcer hit a nerve and totally knew it, roasting the hero for acting like a tough guy while secretly playing the tragic looter. He delivered this sick burn with absolute malice. The entity literally called him an edgy anime protagonist who needed to chill out and repent for grave robbing his partner. Our hero could not even deny the savage roast, but he fired back, blaming their stupid gacha survival system. If the game literally rewards corpse looting, what else was he supposed to do? It was a morbid souvenir. The protagonist then told the demon to drop the high and mighty act since they forced humans into a death game without even dropping a basic tutorial. He called out the admin's total lack of professionalism. Boom, roasted back. The demon fell silent, utterly defeated by the flawless logic. To save face, the enforcer graciously forgave the sass, pretending to admire the kid's mental gymnastics. Our hero just ignored him. Awkward. Clearing his throat, the demon shifted to the grand prize distribution, tapping the player's mark. A massive treasure chest spawned out of nowhere. The admin decided to build suspense, promising a full unboxing review starting with the leaderboards. With a dramatic snap of his fingers, he revealed that round 13 had an absurd monster kill count. Even the devs were shocked. He tapped the hero's smartwatch, telling him to check his stats. The young man's jaw dropped. Over 12,000 kills. First place by an absolute landslide. The demon teased him for playing it cool before dropping the real bombshell. 1,000,000 points and 10 kilos of prime dragon bones. Our hero was utterly flabbergasted. The admin shrugged at admitting dragon bones were super rare, but yeah, still just a bunch of bones. Then came the main event. The mystery chest. The entity smirked, bragging that he bypassed all the annoying terms and conditions for this random gacha box. The young man squinted suspiciously. A free pull. The demon swore it was an exclusive VIP reward for the #1 rank. All he had to do was touch it and say the magic word. Even the admin had no clue what was inside. Smelling a massive troll, our hero hesitated. But the demon pinky promised no more traps, claiming upper management sent it. Reluctantly, the protagonist yelled open. The magical seal popped off, revealing the legendary loot, which turned out to be incredibly sketchy. The hero tilted his head, but the enforcer literally gasped in horror. It was the ultra-rare, terrifyingly named item, Evil Feeling. Our hero demanded his patch notes for this thing, but the demon was having a full-blown panic attack, cursing his bosses for giving endgame gear to a noob, panicking for customer support. Kuro desperately told the kid to raise his hands and demand answers. World to awaken completely and utterly lost. Our hero had zero clue what these weird instructions meant, but felt the rush to just follow orders anyway. The enforcer explained this wasn't some basic loot. It was a sentient artifact that demons usually munch on to mutate their very souls. But in human hands, it just wakes up the grumpy demonic spirit inside. Scratching his head, our guy asked what exactly pops out when it wakes up. The demon just smirked, telling him to follow the manual and find out for himself. Shrugging it off, our boy concentrated hard to wake this so-called evil spirit. Drumroll, please. Absolutely nothing happened. Anticlimactic, right? The demon urged him to push harder, so he kept poking at that dark energy until the marble finally started glowing. Suddenly, something ridiculously soft and fuzzy tickled his palms. Out popped the most adorable, squishy little mascot you have ever seen. Our hero just blinked in total confusion, while even the terrifying demon was completely baffled by this ultimate form of evil. The little fluff ball squeaked, giving our guy a mini heart attack, and casually mentioned how this was its first time actually being awakened instead of just being eaten. Mu Hyuk tensed up, expecting a fight, but was shocked that the demon wasn't trying to snatch this legendary loot. The big bad enforcer just sighed, explaining he literally wasn't allowed to touch a winner's prize. Rules are rules. Caro revealed that this squishy furball needed a name would follow our hero's every command, and packed some seriously secret perks he would have to figure out on his own. With the world's weirdest unboxing video officially over, the enforcer essentially told our champion to kindly get lost. When Mu Hyuk asked if naming the pet was actually required, the demon groaned, explaining it bridges the gap between spirit and reality. After a highly intellectual brainstorming session, Mu Hyuk decided to dip out with his new buddy, named Fluffy. The demon visibly cringed at the absolute lack of naming creativity. But suddenly our hero froze, turning back with one last crazy demand. Caro already read the room. The demon knew exactly what this kid wanted. His fallen comrade's body. Those completely dead, sorrowful eyes said it all. But the enforcer laid down the harsh truth. Anything left in the tower after day 10 becomes literal property of the house. To claim it, our hero had to pony up a trade, but the demon quickly shut down his hopes, mocking that his little prize stash was nowhere near enough to foot the bill. He could only bargain with what he truly owned. Smirking like a true villain, the demon leaned in to ask what he'd sacrifice for his beloved's corpse. Cut to a bit later, our hero was silently walking down the stairs, carrying Ano Yang's lifeless body, a pale hand swaying with every step. His eyes burning with absolute, unadulterated rage over the deal he just made. Flashback time. The enforcer had started giggling before literally rolling on the floor laughing at his proposal. Mu Hyuk had straight up promised to wipe out the entire demon race, and his payment, a single free pass for Karo. He swore that when the apocalypse came, Karo would survive exactly once, and then inevitably meet his doom. The absolute audacity. The demon was shook trying to process this hilariously arrogant threat of future mercy in exchange for a dead body. Seeing our level 1 hero totally deadpan about this Karo was speechless. And then, he broke into a massive psycho grin, unleashing his true monstrous aura. He admitted this kid was peak entertainment. Karo admitted he had met his fair share of absolute lunatics, but this guy's flavor of crazy, it was Michelin star quality, totally unprecedented. The funniest part was that this madman actually believed his own hype. Ignoring the demonic flex, Mu Hyuk just held his hand out for the body. The demon scoffed, saying fancy words pay no bills and human trust is a complete joke. But man, the sheer murderous intent in those eyes, it screamed future final boss vibes, so he accepted the ridiculous deal, warning our hero to actually get strong enough to kill him, or he would hunt him down instead. Knocking back one last edgy sip of blood, the demon tossed his cup aside, cackling like an absolute supervillain. Fast forward to the present, our grieving hero reached the bottom only to bump into the general administrator. The guy practically threw confetti praising him for surviving the murder hobo battle royale and miraculously not dying. The admin felt warm and fuzzy hearing our hero say this was the first time he was actually glad to see its face. It smugly added that all that horrific trauma, just top-tier character development, obviously. But Mu Hyuk was absolutely not in the mood for a pep talk. The admin chuckled at his famous sharp tongue before looking down at the sassy attitude. Suddenly it spotted the fluffball and gasped amazed to see the legendary awakened will looking like a plush toy from a claw machine. Brushing off the cute comments, Mu Hyuk bluntly stated he needed to get home as soon as possible. This completely baffled the blonde admin. Mu Hyuk gently tightened his grip, whispering that he needed to lay his fallen companion to rest. The admin rolled its eyes at this pathetic display of humanity. It warned him to enter stealth mode because rolling up as the sole survivor of a bloodbath, total paparazzi nightmare. Noted Mu Hyuk took the advice and literally bolted out the door like a rocket. The admin's jaw dropped at his insane speed, wondering if he had snagged some broken item that deletes emotions. Nah, probably just overthinking it. Meanwhile, the real storm was just... Our boy casually strolled back into the lobby, leaving the demon administrator totally speechless. I mean, it only took him 30 minutes. Talk about a literal speed run. First on the agenda, cashing in that sweet dungeon loot and all those shiny boss tokens. He warned it might take a hot minute to unpack his massive haul, but the big boss, administrator waved him off basically saying, "I got this, kid." But when our guy checked the final receipt, pure and jaw-dropping shock. Aside from the base loot, he just bagged 14,700,000 points. While our guy blue-screened, and the demon just clapped, amazed that a newbie hit the absolute jackpot. But this wasn't the time to pop champagne. He instantly pivoted to business, asking about those 10 mysterious skill rings. The demon appraised the shiny little trinkets, and upon checking his shiny new system window, our hero's eyes bugged out. He just scored 10 insanely overpowered basic item skills. We're talking fire magic, total immunity, and even emotional manipulation, but the real jackpot. Those single-use cheat codes, like weapon chatter and literal teleportation that any noob could spam. So, like any gamer, he immediately slammed equip on those two. Bad boys devoured the other 8 and bought out the entire store's stock of resistance buffs. The demon grinned, totally thrilled that this kid wasn't blowing his cash on stupid cosmetic upgrades. Bam, 10 new, overpowered skills permanently locked into his growing arsenal. Next up, processing that massive shopping cart of defensive buffs. In a flash of system light, our boy became a walking fortress. The demon chuckled, mocking all those dead rookies who only bought flashy attack moves instead of life-saving resistances, even if they cost an arm and a leg. With his stats perfectly min-maxed, it was time for the craziest gamble of his life, blindly trusting his old master's insane advice. Mu Hyuk looked the demon dead in the eye and demanded his dragon bones. I'd be surgically jammed straight into his human body. The demon choked. Kid, do you even hear yourself right now? But our guy didn't flinch. He fully intended to rip out his fragile skeleton for a draconic upgrade. The horned administrator sighed, explaining that Using them as mere weapons or fancy Wolverine claws was a massive waste. Sure, this insane body mod might actually give him that god-tier power he was craving if his heart didn't explode first. The demon rubbed his chin, admitting he had literally never implanted loot this ridiculously high tier and gave him one last, "Are you sure you want to die today?" warning considering the 99% mortality rate. Even staring death in the face, our boy confidently gave a thumbs up. This absolute madness made the creature a smile like a sadist. "All right, but no refunds when you explode." He laughed instantly, booting up the terrifying procedure. And then his player mark started glowing like a nuclear reactor. He shoved Fluffy out of the blast zone, and in the next second, he was violently yanked into midair. Disgustingly thick veins bulged from his hands, his feet, and snaked up his neck, hacking up blood like a broken fountain. He was plunged into a world of agonizing torment. The demon. Oh, he was just grabbing popcorn. Watching this excruciating horror show unfold, he figured this was the perfect VIP ticket to see if this crazy human actually had the sheer willpower to conquer the mythical strength he begged for, the pain, pure, endless torture. Our boy could literally feel the horrifying sensation of his entire muscular system being violently shredded and stitched back together. Blood started pouring down from his eyes and mouth like a horror movie extra, but despite coughing up half his organs, his burning a thirst for survival refused to die. He swore he would never be pathetic again. Flashback time. Back when he first dragged his feet home, our beaten-up hero promised his cranky master he would bounce back ASAP. The old geezer just scoffed, telling him to stop whining and start accepting some well-deserved praise instead of pathetic apologies. The wise master sighed, noting that the poor girl who bit the dust must have seriously stolen our boy's heart. He confessed she was his ultimate MVP, and his only goal now was to properly lay her to rest once he cashed out his system rewards. The old master shook his head, noting how this kid was both ridiculously blessed and totally cursed by his soft-hearted nature. But enough drama, he demanded the loot report. At first, the kid mumbled through the insane stats, but after doing so, the grumpy old master nearly dropped his dentures. He definitely didn't expect a god-tier carry, but our humble boy awkwardly admitted that he totally had some massive help. The crippled master then dropped some harsh logic. Those epic dragon bones were way too high level for his noodle arms to wield. And good luck trying to pawn them off in their garbage-tier village. Even selling them back to the system administrator would be a total scam. And since he'd get lowballed to oblivion. This loot was so mythic that even the snobby elites in the capital city couldn't afford a single femur. Noticing his master suddenly go dead silent, our hero leaned in, totally hooked. The old man locked eyes with his student. "Kid, do you seriously want to break the power scaling and get instantly overpowered?" Our boy nodded fiercely. His pathetic weakness was exactly why his partner was currently 6 feet under. Seeing that unhinged, crazy glint in his eye, the master smirked, revealing that the ultimate cheat code was right there even if the success rate was pure garbage. It was a forbidden hack used by one legendary maniac way before the admin even clocked into the tower. Against his better judgment, the old man spilled the beans. He solemnly confirmed that he was free to walk away or embrace a method with a 99% chance of death. But our crazy protagonist just turned toward his fallen comrade. Smashing his fist onto the table, he practically demanded the secret. He was absolutely willing to dive straight into hell if it meant getting stronger. The master just smirked, totally, expecting this insane devotion, and finally has spilled the beans. Fast forward to now, and the system administrator was facepalming, calling our guy a total lunatic for ignoring all the massive red flags about this impossible surgery. Just as the admin scoffed that a measly grade 6 hunter would never survive a literal dragon bone transplant ding, the system window popped up, making his jaw hit the floor. Every single resistance and healing skill instantly skyrocketed to grade 6. The demon rubbed his eyes, guessing the crazy transplant was forcing his body to adapt. It was the only logical excuse for why our hero's body was getting absolutely wrecked in every possible way. Then it clicked. This cheeky brat knew exactly what was coming and had pre-purchased every resistance skill in the shop. Meanwhile, the little mascot Fluffy just stood there crying absolute waterfalls in silence. A full 24 hours later, the results completely shattered every single one of the demon's expectations. All those basic resistance skills boom ascended straight to grade 1. But what really broke the admin's brain was the sudden trigger of skill synthesis.
Against all odds, our unconscious madman was actually succeeding at the notoriously brutal task of smashing multiple skills together to forge a brand new one. Sure, having higher grade skills boosts the success rate, but kits if you fail. Say goodbye to your hard-earned skill grades. Normally a player would sweat buckets before even attempting this. Yet here was our guy casually running a high-stakes synthesis while completely knocked out. Talk about a crazy stroke of luck. Watching this impossible cheat code behavior, the admin seriously started wondering if the tower's creator conveniently forgot to patch some massive bugs before handing over the keys. Suddenly, the demon glanced over at Fluffy, only to absolutely lose it. When he realized the crying furball was casting some high-level dark magic, he stared in absolute disbelief. Whatever. This little monster was doing broke all the rules, but it was definitely helping the surgery. And just as his demonic brain
It was short-circuiting over the crazy bond between this ultimate evil entity and its master, another system window rudely interrupted.
Ding, the skill fusion casually hit grade 3, a level of brokenness literally never before seen in the history of this continent. The admin broke into a cold sweat, terrified of what this monster would become. 2 agonizing hours later, the fused skills leveled up to 2 boom. A brand new cheat skill called Comprehensive Resistance was officially born, granting him absolute tank-like endurance. 4 hours after that ridiculous power-up, the groaning protagonist finally started, waking up from his nap. The admin just sighed, watching the furball continue its weird, dark rituals. After another 2 hours, the new resistance skill hit grade as whoosh pitch black aura exploded from our hero as he dramatically slammed his feet onto the floor. The sheer force of his landing blew away the dust and proved his unbreakable will. Against all logic, the mythical dragon bones were perfectly merged with his body. A totally overpowered new chapter in Mu Hyuk's life had begun. Left alone, the admin casually lit up a pipe, grinning as she realized this guy was going to be wildly entertaining to watch. Meanwhile, after sneaking like a ninja through the tall grass, our overpowered protagonist finally arrived back at the old hut. He gave himself a mental high five for buying those stealth skills, letting him dodge every single annoying monster along the way. Inside, his master snored loudly in a chair only to snap his eyes open the second his crazy disciple walked in. Seeing his student survive that suicidal bone surgery, the old man practically beamed with pride. He finally had a fighting chance. Our hero just smirked, bragging that survival was guaranteed with such a legendary teacher. Then the master squinted at the floating furball, Fluffy. Mu Hyuk awkwardly scratched his head, admitting he totally forgot to introduce his weird new pet after surviving that nightmare hunt. After spilling the whole insane story, the old master's jaw practically unhinged. He stared blankly, completely failing to process that his rookie student casually owned the legendary evil feeling. Mu Hyuk blinked, totally surprised that his grumpy old master actually knew what this weird marble was. He casually mentioned winning it as the grand prize for clutching first place in the death game. Since eating it wasn't an option, the magical orb just sort of hatched into a furball. The master nearly choked, never imagining an ancient evil entity would turn into a cute pet. He yelled at his student for acting like owning a world-ending artifact was perfectly normal. Though dying to hear more about this ridiculous cheat item, the old man sighed heavily, reminding his student of a much more heartbreaking priority. Resting quietly on the wooden table was the lifeless body of his beloved. The old master gently explained that he had used some ancient magic to completely freeze her condition. He joked that even with only one good leg, he still had a few flashy tricks up his sleeve. Mu Hyuk bowed his head, overwhelmed with absolute gratitude as he carefully picked up So Young. His heart ached as he whispered an apology for keeping her waiting so long. When his master softly asked where, the hero had a perfectly hidden, peaceful sanctuary in mind. Understanding the weight of the moment, the master stepped back to let him say one final goodbye. Our protagonist bowed deeply, expressing massive gratitude to the man who guarded his partner, only for the elder to humbly wave it off. Gently gathering his beloved in his arms, he carried her into the fading dawn. Our hero stood before an ancient tree flooded with bittersweet memories. Back in the good old days, this very tree marked the border of their fierce hunting grounds. He whispered a soft apology for trespassing, and an even deeper one for laying her in the cold dirt. Flashy tombs only invited greedy grave robbers, so he swore on his life to build her a paradise-level shrine later. The protagonist, always a man of his word, promised a swift return. To prove his growth, he flashed his newly forged Grade 1 claws at the grave, bragging about their deadly efficiency. A fond smile crossed his face as he remembered how she used to tease him for copying cheap action movies. At that memory, hot tears finally broke through his iron facade, but he quickly wiped them away. He promised his fallen partner that he would survive, keeping her final words etched into his soul. The protagonist remained fiercely determined to fulfill their legendary pact. He would absolutely annihilate the demon god before ever returning here.
And so he bid his final farewell, turning his back to the dawn while signaling his little spirit marble to tag along. But Fluffy lingered and spotted So Young's glowing soul resting peacefully nearby. The little spirit waved a cheerful goodbye as the dark aura began to trail after its master. A warm, gentle smile graced her ethereal face, wishing her stubborn partner would just lighten up. While marching through the dense woods, his mind drifted back. He remembered blacking out repeatedly from the absolute soul-crushing agony of the recent surgery. Yet completely swallowed by that suffocating darkness and madness, he experienced a miracle. He could clearly see her spirit violently pushing him back to the land of the living. Her tragic end wasn't a weakness. It was his ultimate courage, seeing how she fearlessly crushed every obstacle. She was a warrior who deserved to clash with the demon god herself. He simply could not accept that So Young was buried in the dirt. Because of this, the demon race had just signed their own death warrants with an unforgivable sin. Later over at Aspel Village, reality hit hard. Rent was a staggering 200,000 points, with instant eviction for slackers and hiring servants was completely legal. Lyral, the notoriously icy demon administrator in charge of the tower, rattled off these rules to our hero before rudely telling him to hit the road. Annoyed, he pointed out she was just parroting her exact script from yesterday. When he asked for system updates, he was met with a literal wall of frozen silence. Honestly, he began to think these system administrators desperately needed an attitude adjustment. For a customer service, NPC, they seriously lacked basic hospitality. Their job was literally to provide kindness. Even so, he breathed a sigh of relief that the mountain of paperwork was a breeze. Mu Hyuk was now secretly crashing in this new town. As the sole surviving rookie, he had a massive target on his back from furious rival clans that sponsored the fallen players. Since village hopping was strictly banned for first years, he had no choice but to swipe his card for a premium colonist pass, bumping his status to a second year. Sure, it cost an arm and a leg, but our hero knew dodging assassins was worth every single point. This so-called modest shack was way pricier than his old place, but it made the perfect hidden base. Upon returning home, his priority immediately shifted. He began to think of how to provide absolute luxury care for his injured master. Enter Mr. Coop, an insanely expensive elite caretaker he hired so he could go on deadly raids completely stress-free. He told the guy to drop the stiff formalities and just be casual. Hilariously, this professional nurse is literally a massive orc who takes his job way too seriously. Just then, the grumpy master scolded his student for relying on dark powers, stubbornly declaring that he didn't need any special care, and that his pupil should just go train. Hearing this, the giant orc visibly deflated, looking completely heartbroken and useless. Panicking, the master frantically tried to fix the misunderstanding, but our hero flat-out rejected the old man's complaints. Mu Hyuk bluntly explained that having a beefy orc play nurse was essential for his mental health. Knowing his teacher was safe meant he could keep leveling up with absolute focus. Defeated by flawless protagonist logic, the grumpy master finally surrendered. Mu Hyuk proudly added that he was basically loaded, now tossing points around without a second thought, just to completely reassure the old man. The master then turned his attention to his monstrously overpowered student. After banishing the sulking orc and the spirit to go play out in the yard, he admitted he had fully expected the kid to hit rank 6, but it was a massive shock to see him completely shatter that ceiling by miles. The teacher revealed that the extreme bone transplant was an absolute cheat code, as it granted him god-tier strength. Naturally, such an agonizing surgery triggered bizarre bodily phenomena, like how he somehow forged an ultra-rare resistance skill while completely knocked out, who even levels up in a coma. The young man affirmed that he was just as confused, casually brushing it off as some basic survival instinct kicking in right before the teacher dove into the real explanation. Hitting grade 4 in comprehensive resistance was basically a continental myth, and grinding it solo was a complete nightmare. When his master casually asked about his next grinding spot, Mu Hyuk smirked. He had the perfect dungeon in mind. The old teacher just grinned, wishing his crazy student good luck. Fast forward to that night. Our main character sprawled on his bed, realizing how weird it felt to sleep alone after bunking with that armless dude. Shaking off those strange bromance memories, he held up a delicate butterfly hairpin, the exact same one he had gifted to his tragic first love. It looked gorgeous on her. Honestly, our guy nearly forgot to loot it off her corpse. Pleading with So Young's ghost not to haunt him, he swore to return the accessory once he finished his epic quest. Fulfilling a promise to a dead waifu, that is protagonist motivation, 101, and he was locked in. Skip ahead 2 days. Our boy was getting absolutely roasted alive while trekking through a massive, endless desert. Stopping at his target, he threw off his hood. Behold the legendary hidden sand fortress buried beneath the dunes. Suddenly, his pocket started jiggling. Fluffy desperately wanted out, completely ignoring the boiling desert temperatures. Whatever. As a premium first-class item, a little heat stroke would not kill the furball. Mu Hyuk stared at the giant sand castle. This map was notoriously garbage for farming because the monsters dropped absolutely zero loot. No points, no shortcuts, just a cursed wasteland everyone avoided like the plague. Even the master called it a trash zone. But our crazy hero had one specific cheat code reason for being here. Focusing his aura magical energy condensed in his palm, the ultimate core consumer casually summoned a solid blade out of thin air. Sure, he could craft shields all day, but this budget sword got the job done even without fancy dragon bones. Why a sword? Because this cursed sandbox was crawling with skeleton soldiers officially classed as swordsmen. Their base stats were complete garbage, but their sword techniques were absolutely broken and totally overpowered. Time to steal some skills. By fighting these bony experts, Mu Hyuk could copy their moves and become a swordmaster. He was going to get ridiculously buff. After all, he still had a promise to keep for his ghostly girlfriend.